Hey there guys, it's Metro, and today we're back with another community discussion type video where we kind of read through what people are thinking about on certain forum threads. This time I actually made the thread myself. I'm going to tell you why, because, patch 8.15 is coming out, kind of like waiting for that. There's just things I want to make videos on with that as well, but figure we'll wait till they're out. So last week I decided, I was thinking a lot about Classic recently. A lot of people ask me how I feel about Classic, what are my intentions, what are my opinions. And obviously, if you follow the trajectory of me as a personality online, you know that at one point I played Classic extremely heavily. Like I'm talking about every single day for probably, maybe about a year plus. And, that time was very tumultuous. There was a lot of things I loved, and a lot of things I did not like at all. And not all of it was about Classic, not all about the game. So my biggest concern with the actual product is what I'm actually going to receive in it. Because, if we were to go back to that time, I would probably say I wasn't very satisfied with what I was doing, even though I was doing it so frequently. It was one of those like love-hate things, right? Where with BFA, I'm a lot more satisfied. There's still things that really frustrate me about the community and the things surrounding the game, especially in Mythic Plus Dungeons. When somebody leaves, that's one of the most frustrating things I've ever experienced. Way more frustrating than anything I really ever experienced, in Classic and in private servers or whatever else, But the problem is there was way more of it in Classic, and like I said, it's not all about the game. So today we're going to focus on a little bit more on what people are excited for, because that's what I want to hear about. The big thing that I think about is what gets people motivated to play a game that, first of all, is this old, and second of all, potentially has like such a finite amount of things that are ever going to be in it. Like we don't know anything about what the future holds for Classic, but very likely it's not going to hold anything. So I don't know how that's going to work out, but you got to have a reason to really want to play a game like that. So I'd love to hear people's thoughts as well in the comment section down below. But for today, we got only 98 comments. This was regrettable. I thought we'd have a lot more, but yeah, we'll read some of them are very detailed. So I'm going to start by reading mine so you guys understand, okay? Title of the thread obviously is what do you like in Classic that isn't in BFA, okay? All right, so I said, hey everyone, we're having a discussion similar to this in general discussion this morning, but came to realize almost no one there is actually interested in Classic, so it turned sour quick. So yeah, I was actually having this exact same. Somebody made a thread about this in general discussion, which is 99% people who have no interest in Classic for some reason. And there was not a lot of good discussion. So I was like, you know what, forget it. Let's flip the script. Let's go over here. This is much more, this is more like 85% only in favor of Classic. There are a lot of people who play both here. So I felt, we'd get a lot better of an answer here. So anyway, so I'd like to run a little experiment. With this experiment, I'm very interested in hearing from people specifically who have played Legion or BFA enough to know what they were doing. I put that there for a very important reason. But we are going to be quitting specifically for Classic, or at least will be playing it significantly less. Preferably not just people who quit BFA because it wasn't satisfactory compared to past expansions, but if that's the case too, that's fine as long as you are playing Classic. So I really want to find people who are preferring to play Classic. Like if you can play 40 hours a week, are you going to play Classic or BFA, right? If it was up to me, the answer obviously be BFA. But if you're going to play 20 and 20, that's not what I was looking for here. I'm looking for you're definitely choosing Classic over BFA and why. If you're choosing Classic over Modern WoW, what would you say has made that decision for you? I'd love to learn as much about this topic as I can, so it'd be super helpful if you could be as descriptive as you have time for, and not just say the game sucks or something like that, like you typically hear in some discussions. Also, if you're excited for both Classic and BFA, I'd love to hear that too. I feel like at times I'm the only person who is passionate about both, so it'd be cool to hear why. So I actually then give my reasons to try to kind of keep things balanced here. So I said to start, I'll name things I'm excited about the most. So Battle for Azeroth, obviously Mythic Plus Dungeons. This is the number one thing that I will never, no matter what happens with Classic, they're not going to have Mythic Plus Dungeons. They're not going to have competitive dungeon content, right? We'll just be doing them. It's going to be back to like challenge modes. I'll just be doing them for absolutely no reason other than for fun, and that's fine by me. But Mythic Plus dungeons are obviously a lot more fun. And of course, there's going to be new dungeons added to the game. Anyway, Blood DK gameplay, number 2, without question. As much as I like Paladin and Druid in Classic, it's not going to really compare to Blood DK. And it's probably going to be really frustrating to go back to the old tanking model after I played Blood DK for so long. And then, of course, the competition around the game. Like, that is something that's frankly not going to exist in Classic. I hope everybody realizes that. 12-plus-year-old content, there's not really much to compete in. But I have seen, a lot of stuff on private servers. There's a very, very niche group that is very serious about maximizing their potential and even, developing that. But problem is with private servers, there's so many inconsistencies. So maybe there will be some type of like actual competitive scene, but that competitive scene will frankly be very self-contained. The game won't foster it. It'll be the players. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But anyway, so then for Classic, the things I'm very excited for. Very unique class design. Absolutely. Without question. That's the number one thing. And that's the thing that I know these reasons here are the reasons I know I'll play Classic. There's times where I'm like, I feel like a lot of the reasons I'm excited about Classic is just nostalgia. What's even going to bother? Why would I even bother playing when I know it's just nostalgia? Well, these are the reasons, okay? Classic Paladin is top 5 class design ever for me. Classic and TBC Paladin, I think, is... honestly, it would be tough. If Blood Decay was removed entirely, I would say it's probably the best class design my favorite anyway. Not, of course, the best objectively, but my favorite. Paladin in the early 2 expansions was a stellar design. I can't express it enough. I absolutely love it, but it's really clunky in Classic. So we'll see. We'll see how I feel about it after I played it properly again. But anyway, leveling as the main focus of the game, another one. I absolutely love open world content. I love the fact that leveling is a big part of the game. I love the world that has developed around that, and why the world has developed is a lot of because of how long it takes, how much time you spend out in the world, right? Clearly not something that's in BFA, although there's ways to make it pretty interesting. You're just never really going to run into other people who care enough. Even when I tell people, about the naked leveling challenge and ways to make leveling more engaging, people just have no interest, right? That's just the game we're playing nowadays. People just don't seem to care about that kind of stuff anymore. Anyway, and certain content especially. So Dire Maul, one of my favorite instance sets ever. I am hugely nostalgic about it because I very distinctly remember. I can look back at my character doing. It's like a whole range of emotions doing Dire Maul, and then Zul'Gurub. That was really the first proper raid I ever remember being a part of. I think it might actually have been the first raid I was ever a part of. I remember having joined that guild that I joined in Classic very late. They were already working on MC and BWL, and I feel like they might have taken me to MC or BWL earlier, but I don't know. I think the first raid I might have ever done was Zul'Gurub as well, and that would definitely make sense because I really, really, really have strong connections to this raid. But again, a lot of it's nostalgia, you know what I mean? Going back in there, I could see myself just having fun being in the raid. That's pretty emotionally driven, but those are some of the main reasons that I know, especially Zul'Gurub and Dire Maul, that I will always enjoy Classic. Even if I literally just did those all day, I would be pretty satisfied. So, and there's reasons to think I would do those all day because Zul'Gurub has a very short CD on its lockout. It's only a 3-day lockout, which is insane. And Dire Maul, there's 3 dungeons in there, and they're very a wide range of gear. A lot of people need them. So I could see myself playing like a prop pally and, a mix of all 3 of these things, like prop pally, leveling, grinding, doing all that kind of stuff, maybe helping other people level on it, and then doing dungeons kind of like for fun, you know what I mean? I could see this being a big reason why I would enjoy Classic. So anyway, I also point out that I'll abstain from commenting again in this thread to keep the results unbiased, and then I'm going to come back and collect the results for further discussion. That's what we're doing right now. So let's get right into it. Only 4 hearts. People are not... Anyway, okay. This guy got 17 hearts. Damn. Anyway, classes are much more unique and diverse. So this is now, again, we're reading a comment basically of somebody who's replying to this thread. And hopefully what they're going to be replying to is telling me why they prefer Classic over BFA. So let's preface that, okay? Classes are much more unique and diverse in Classic WoW. Okay. So I don't... First of all, and then, okay, so now I'm going to give my opinion. Right? I'm going to read the comment, break it down like I normally do. If you guys have never seen one of these videos, this is how we do it. We read the comments, react kind of candidly to them, okay? Classes are much more unique and diverse in Classic WoW. They're definitely a lot more unique, but I don't understand how anybody could say they're diverse, especially with how thin some of the rotations are. Basically, the only thing that's really cool about Classic WoW's classes is how unique they are, you know what I mean? But diverse... Yeah, okay, anyway, especially coming from a rogue. Anyway, the world is more dangerous in Classic WoW and has a more strategic element to it. I really feel like that's noob speak right there. Like, saying stuff like that is just frankly pure nostalgia and remembering times when you were inexperienced with the game, because there's no truth in that. But it's definitely more dangerous than the proper game, right? Like BFA, right? The world is definitely more dangerous, but there's no strategic element to it. You just swing your weapons and press abilities, you know what I mean? And then he'll clarify by saying knowing how and when to pull. Yeah, okay, don't pull more than one mob. Is that really strategic? I don't know. Actually using CC in combat. If you made a mistake, yeah, I guess you could use CC. Otherwise, you just don't ever fight more than one mob. And there's definitely a lot more types of CC in BFA, right? Grouping up is all but required for some quests, right? But those quests aren't required to level. So again, that's the problem. That's the big thing I have in the back of my head. I really worry about this for Classic. I worry about how many people are just going to be complete noobs with Classic. They're going to be doing shit like this, like spending like hours trying to get a group to do a to do an elite quest. It's like, okay, you could have gotten like a full level by now, right? Like this time you spent, I don't know. This really worries me, and obviously I'm approaching it very differently than others, but if you've seen my other Classic videos, you'll know that I have a very different opinion about what is required and what is not. Anyway, dungeons are longer and actually require CC even at lower levels. Obviously, low-level dungeons in the live game do not require much effort, and arguably they're definitely shorter. I mean, I don't know. There's some changes that have come recently. I haven't done a lot of low-level dungeons, but they are a lot better pacing in the live game than they used to be. In 7.3.5, they made a lot of changes. I really like that. But yeah, hopefully, especially at low levels, people understand dungeons just aren't meant to be balanced, and they certainly aren't a focus of Classic any more than they are a focus of BFA. Really, dungeons are a complete waste of time at low level. They give very, very poor experience per hour. They have quests that are arguably worth doing because they can oftentimes give very impactful rewards, like gear that is going to transcend a multiple item level. It's not really, but you know what I mean? Like you're going to have it for a long time. But the actual dungeon, if you remove that, the travel time, the fact that you can't summon in Classic, the fact that people are in all different zones, these things are, like, for group finding, I mean, there's no unified group finder. These things make dungeons very, very, very inefficient in Classic. So again, whenever I hear somebody bring up dungeons for leveling, I always think, like, okay, you're really just not interested in competing and doing the best you can at these things. So anyway, knowing who is on your server and your reputation matters. Now, that's something that was very present in actual Classic, but it really depends on what they're going to do with servers in like the new Classic, okay? And the reason it matters is because there is no way that they're going to be able to make multiple servers and keep them vital for years. It's just not possible. So this is something that we really need to think about. I'm really concerned about this. In fact, it's probably the thing I'm most concerned about with Classic is what's going to happen with servers. If it was up to me, they would make one server, okay? And a lot of people don't like this. But the problem is, if you don't make one server, eventually there's going to need to be server merges. And then eventually your reputation is going to not matter anymore, right? Because you're going to get merged onto a server. You might actually have to have a name change. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you have a name, I don't know how it's going to work, but on previous private server type projects, when that happened, the people who had the original name the longest were the ones that were able to keep it. So yeah, there might actually be name changes. Like server merges are not Blizz-like, quote unquote, right? Like using private server technology or terminology. That's just not how the game worked. You don't randomly lose your server, okay? But if they make like say 10 servers per region, man, I'm telling you, dude, like a year from now, 7 of them are just going to be completely dead. Like, there'll be like no guilds. There'll be nothing. There'll be no reason to play on those realms. So this is a problem, man. I don't know why we have to think about this. So I totally recognize that this is definitely something in Classic that was not really a thing for many, many years in live. But frankly, I think reputation and your place in the community is just as strong in BFA. It's just not based on server anymore. You know what I mean? It's based on things like YouTube and Twitch and Discord and things above the game. Not really out of the game, but above the game. So I'm hoping that they can make this work in proper Classic, but I'm worried. I really am. Having actual talent trees. Now, that's one that I definitely love. You know what I mean? I love for leveling. The talent trees make it so good, man. I'm telling you, that's really one of the best things about Classic's leveling system. You have a very processed way to improve your character every level, and that just absolutely does not exist in BFA, so I totally feel that one. Having access to most of your spells and abilities no matter what spec you are. somewhere down the line, the Fire Mage forgot how to cast Blizzard. That's actually a great point. I love that about Classic as well. It works, again, really well for leveling. It doesn't work as well for max level stuff. And I think what people need to understand here is that the reason that this happened was because they didn't want Fire Mages to be using spells that, like, it's not a Fire Mage if you're using Frost spells. Like, that's how people play in Classic. It's the talent trees are really just buff trees at some point, like Arcane especially. You don't have Arcane spells, you know what I mean? You use mostly non-Arcane abilities in Classic, even if you're Arcane spec. So talent trees, just like, specialization in general, just became more of a thing in in Wrath and onward, really. So I wouldn't really say that's a feature of Classic. That's kind of just a byproduct of the fact that they didn't really know what they were doing with specs and class design. But anyway, yeah, so good start. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, how do we, we're all done. Anyway, so this guy actually did exactly what, we'll see if he actually elaborates, but I mean, he did exactly what, I guess he's just trolling. It said modern WoW sucks, obviously fucking trolls. So anyway, let's move on. Remove LFD and LFR and nature will take it from there. I honestly, you're talking to the wrong person with this, man. I totally agree. I think LFR and LFD are the worst things that ever happened to live WoW, frankly. There's a list of probably 5 or 6 things that I think set us on this path here where the live game really deteriorated in terms of, social unity, play of in the world, things like that, that really build an MMORPG, and that Classic definitely has and BFA doesn't. And this is definitely one of them. There's absolutely no reason that we should have queuable content in a game now, especially with so many different difficulties. At one point, it was like, all right, queuable content is just meant to be easier than regular content. Now we have so many different difficulties. Do we really need that anymore? And we could talk about that for hours. So let's move on. Okay, I recently leveled a Paladin in BFA. It took me a little under 3 days. That's funny because I actually just finished watching Comp level, and it took him just under 3 days as well. So that was really good. All I did was sit in Stormwind and queue for dungeons. Well, that was your choice. I would recommend getting out in the world and playing it. Maybe the world would feel more active if you were actively trying to engage in it, or you were trying to encourage it around your peers. Anyway, when I went out to quest, the zones were empty. That's probably because you're thinking about sitting in Stormwind and queuing all the time. So it was very much a multiplayer game with different instances. It didn't feel like an MMO. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I hope you guys realize why that would be the case, right? Like, people have this stigma about leveling where they don't want to actually go do quests. They don't want to group up with other people. The game's changed. And it's not just the game, but it's also the people who play the game. 2019, people play the game very differently. And they're not really looking for that anymore, especially in a game where leveling is kind of just an afterthought now. So, yeah, I don't know what to say about that other than, maybe you can find a realm or a community that's actually more populated at low level and encourage people to play around that. But otherwise, it's not really going to be the case. And you say now Classic is the opposite. I remember I had a priest and I'd buff random people and they'd buff me when questing. It was a lot of fun. But that's because there was like 70% of the game was leveling, right? Like, that's not realistic to expect a game that's 14 years old. So hopefully people understand that. Like, if you want a leveling game, then Classic is definitely going to be more active. But if you want an actual video game that you're going to play for decades, then I would recommend the live game. Anyway, this guy makes a joke about Paladins. Okay. It's Ipsan community first and foremost. After that would be an actual RPG, not some lobby game that hands out epics as participation awards. Fix those 2 things and you'll fix 90% of the problems in WoW. So obviously community first and foremost, I vastly disagree with. I think our opinions are not just, like, they don't even, you couldn't put the 2 in the same boat. For me, community is very, very, very alive and well. And compared to my time on Classic, private servers, I think it's vastly healthier on live, especially community around competitive content. Seeing, like a recognizable player, especially, even as much as I hate the Raider.io score, these people because you play with them a lot and pugging, you see their score, they're accomplished. There's a lot more of a social hierarchy there. Whereas in Classic, it's basically just people talking in trade chat. I mean, to me, that's what Classic community is. It's people talking in trade chat. Like, that's really it. Where else is there community? You know what I mean? Especially 14 years ago, there was no really out-of-server communities, out-of-game communities. There was no Discord. Voice over IP programs were very, very limited. There was not a lot of socialization that happened outside the game. So I hope people realize that. That's not going to be the case in 2019, right? People are going to play and operate within the game differently now. A lot of the community stuff is still going to happen above the game in Classic, just like it does on Live WoW, just like it does on every other video game on the planet, okay? It's more convenient to have, something on your phone where you could talk to people than talking in-game. So really, my experience with community and Classic is just people memeing, posting racism in Baron's chat. That's the way I see it. So anyway, definitely would agree that a lot of RPG elements have been stripped away from the live game. But yeah, some sad lobby game that hands. First of all, sad lobby game. I don't even know what the fuck you're saying there. But anyway, hands out epics as participation rewards. I definitely, whether or not this is coming from the same viewpoint as I'm about to have, I definitely agree that gear is far too plentiful. But the thing is, you got to realize what's good and bad gear, right? Right now, pretty poor gear is way too plentiful. And the problem is now, especially in BFA, is that mid-tier gear is actually way too plentiful as well. So in Legion, I would say just, bad gear, way too plentiful. Now it's mid-tier gear as well. It's like the best gear is still hard to get and takes a lot of effort, okay? But yeah, they need to reinvigorate the structure behind went too far. Reinvigorate the structure behind gearing. Anyway, can we actually? Oh yeah, we can do that. Community is a big one for me. Haven't been part of a guild that I've enjoyed since MOP. Okay, that's very easily fixable in the live game. I don't know what that has to do with the video game. My current guild, not this character, is great in Discord, but in-game activity is lacking. So you're gonna find that in Classic too, man. I hate to tell you. That's going to be the way of it. It's not, it's just people are more apt to comment on something, especially if they're driving and, or like they're out, they're not playing the game. Discord is better. You got your phone, you got all different ways to communicate out of game, and that is going to be a big problem for Classic too. Anyway, secondly, I miss the talent trees. So many choices and a small reward for every level. It's absolutely spectacular while leveling, 100%. And I really, really, really like that about Classic. But frankly, to say so many choices, it's just not true. It really is just a bit not true, especially at max level. There's if there was no lead in, like if you can put your points anywhere on the talent tree, totally agree. But there's so many talents in Classic that are mandatory for how your spec and gameplay operates. It really ruins it for me. It's like basically Classic talent tree, well, more like TBC talent tree, much better version of the talent tree if you ask me. But yeah, early game talent tree, pre-Wrath talent tree, basically. Pre-Wrath talent tree combined with Azerite gear. That would be my ideal situation, because Azerite gear, you can make a lot more choices. Like, there's actually way more impactful choices. And for me, I would much rather if they just expanded on the Azerite gear system than try to bring out a talent system, because it's basically the same thing. You know what I mean? Every Azerite piece has basically 4 talent points. You know what I mean? And some of them aren't the most impactful. Obviously, some of the most useless ones exist, especially for Blood DK. But there's ones like, we see with Resto Shaman, we saw with Holy Pally, we saw with, of course, Demo Warlock, which is getting nerfed now. Like, these are really, really high impact choices. And in my opinion, it's a lot more fun mixing and matching in between your class than with talent trees. Like with talent trees, it was a real slog to switch specs. And there was a lot of things that you simply could not change. If you wanted to play a prop pally, you had to take these things. But with Azerite gear and, other customization systems that have came out, like in Legion Legendaries and stuff, you could use things that are not necessarily for your spec, that would actually impact your spec. This happens a lot with Bear Druid, and now we're also seeing it quite a bit with Paladin and Shaman too. Like the Ignis Potential trait, the iconic trait now for Resto Shaman is actually an Ellie Shaman trait. So it'd be equivalent to say in Classic, you're going deep into the Ellie tree just to maximize your play as a Resto Shaman. And that's fine, you can do that, but it's like you'd be losing so much along the way, So like those decisions I think are just as present, if not more present in the live game, thanks to stuff like that. So I'd rather see an Azerite system that's expanded upon vastly, but for leveling, of course, the talent tree is superior. There's no way, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You get so many more choices while leveling, so definitely agree with that. Thirdly, I only played 2 classes in Classic, yet so many people praise vanilla class design. Now I can finally experience some of those classes. I think praise is the wrong word. I think a lot of people reflect nostalgically on it, myself included. Like I said, a lot of problems with classic classes. There's no question about that. I don't think any way around that. I think everybody should agree, really, unless you're just, of course, blinded by nostalgia. But it's definitely, it's very interesting. It's very interesting, very different than live. And, maybe one of the sore points about live is class design. I don't have that problem. Every spec I play, I actually really, really enjoy. And I hope that will be the case in Classic too, because I'm worried about how clunky some things are, especially, playing prop pally properly is a real pain in the ass. So we'll see. But anyway, lastly, I like attunements. Okay, you're probably one of like 10 people. I don't mind attunements, but that's definitely not a reason I would ever consider Classic better than BFA. Okay, so this guy says server reputation, right? Again, I hope that's the case. I don't know. A lot of these are going to be duplicates now, but I hope that's the case in the new version of Classic. I worry that it's not going to be the case at some point, but for the first few months at least, it definitely will be. Unique classes with actual talent trees. Again, the whole unique class thing, it's really weird. I don't know where people are coming from with this, but yeah, I can understand why people like the talent trees. It's especially great for leveling. And even while leveling, the classes can be very unique. But at max level, they all kind of have this very rigid, defined niche. And the problem is, I think, like, you think of a mage, right? Well, what's a mage in Classic? Forced to play Frost because of resistances and raids. Really unfortunate. And then, Fire becomes so much better in, like, ZG and Nax and AQ and stuff. But, like, has to play Frost. Literally, like, has to use Frost spells. Then pretty much has to use fire spells because of how powerful everything is. Has to give out mana, biscuits or whatever, gives out stacks of water, all that. There's no biscuits yet. And then has to, drop portals. That's it. There's not much there, you know what I mean? It's a very rigid progression as a mage. This is how you play. This is the only really way to play. But outside of endgame content, they have all different options. That's the cool thing about Classic, right? Things are really, really, really unique outside of rigid play. But then when you get to the end game content, it feels like everything's really on rails. You're using like 2 spells, literally just Frostbolt over and over and over and over and over again through BWL. It's tough, man. It's tough for me to really be satisfied with that. So I don't know. The original world and quests, obviously talking about the Cataclysm changes. I totally understand and agree with that. It's actually something that I'm really excited about as well. Going back, basically back in time through Azeroth. A dangerous environment. Yeah, I again, compared to BFA, I totally understand why people would say that, but I worry about how much experience some of these people have with some of these content. And then World PvP, obviously, that's just not one that I will ever agree with. I think World PvP with War Mode is objectively better than it was in Classic. Classic World PvP to me is just basically ganking, and that's not fun for anybody, I don't think. Even the people who are ganking, I feel like, are wasting their own time. At least War Mode has some real incentives around it. So, very good. I'm satisfied with World PvP and Legion and BFA. And I think Classic's fine too. That's one of the reasons I like Classic, but I definitely won't be participating in World PvP in Classic. This guy's actually only got 2 posts, so this was one of them. That's cool. Anyway, I'll answer it both ways. What I liked about Classic is the dungeon design and general quest design. Some of my favorite dungeons were in Classic are now simply gone. Yeah, totally understand that. I also like the bland generic questing in Classic a lot more than trying to turn WoW into a single-player, story-based RPG. That's an interesting thing that he actually says. Bland generic questing in Classic. What it effectively I see him meaning here is that he likes how basically none of the stories are actually important. They're not really related. They're not really intertwining in any way. Not until you get to like the high 40s do they actually have any impact on the actual progression of the stories, end game, or anything like that. So it's like, yeah, all right, that feels like more like an RPG, and I totally understand that. Now for the other perspective, as bad class balance is in BFA, it's ton better than it was in vanilla. Okay, well I'm glad to hear somebody say that, because even if you think class balance is really bad in live game, which arguably I disagree with, but I understand why people would say it is. I'm glad to see people realize that it's definitely more balanced and more intricate than Classic. So, all right, Don Spirit, let's see. Basically plays Hunter and really likes Classic Hunter, and I could totally understand that. That Classic Hunter, very, very, very unique. I really like live WoW's Hunter derivations over the years, but yeah, the Hunter having range and melee weapons, really cool. Like, all of that stuff is fucking really unique, honestly, so I totally feel that. Priest and plates. I miss how there was just one version of the dungeon and raid. Yeah, that's something I do miss too as well. I wish there was a more concise version, and it would actually lend itself to competitive play a lot more. But I don't know. I think it's fine. Like Mythic, especially being like the only one that matters, it's fine by me. With that came one version of armor. No random Titan Forge crap. Interesting. Not where I thought he was going with this. Yeah, I mean you could have the game the way it is without Titan Forging too, but I don't know. I think Classic would frankly be better with Titan Forging, as stupid as it sounds. The problem with Classic's gearing system is that like about 50% of the gear in the game is just absolutely useless. So with or without Titan Forging, I don't think gearing is I think it's quite a sore spot in Classic actually. Anyway, the talent tree made it more immersive for leveling. Definitely agree. Like someone said earlier, you can just spec as a tank and queue all day in a city now. Or you can go play the game. That's a choice that you're making. I miss PvP servers. Oh, you'll like War Mode, my friend. You will be very interested in War Mode. As much as I hated ganking, it made the world feel dangerous, and you had to be careful. Welcome to War Mode. You really should check it out. In vanilla, the honor system was better than that was my era of PvP. I see. So yeah, I don't know. The vanilla honor system was cool, but that's basically what they just added in Legion, right? It's very similar, not that different. I guess the rewards and the incentives around it are a little different, but it's pretty similar, actually. I really love the fact that you see, like, the medallion on the character's portrait in Live WoW. You really know how serious they are about PvP, or at least how frequent they PvP, and that's really cool. Anyway, all right, this guy says so many things, but to just name a few, I really enjoy the familiar community aspect of closed server communities versus the teeming sea of nameless, faceless adventures we have now with LFR, LFD, and CRZ. So none of those things really, I don't think any of those things really have an impact on that. Like you could have all of those systems and still they only work per server. The reason that I feel like that is the case is because of cross-server communities, popping up. And frankly, the game has to have it. The game's too old for it otherwise. You'd have to close like half the servers, maybe even more like 70, 80% of the servers for the game to function that way. So we're going to have the same problem in Classic. It's not a function of the game's design. It's a function of the times. And I really am worried about what they're going to do about servers. Anyway, this alone is why I feel I have not been able to enjoy any other new MMO RPGs in so many years as well. Because everything now has group finders, rendering the people you meet along the way expendable and unmemorable. Well, first of all, I totally agree. Group finder has no place in an MMO RPG and wish it was removed. But I don't agree that anybody's expendable or unmemorable. That's your choice. That's the way you play the game. You could easily just engage with these people, talk to them, and it'll be a better situation. But it would be a lot better if there was not random ass queuing and antisocial shit like just voting to kick somebody without even talking to them. Anyway, past that behemoth issue, I really like purples and even blues being so much harder to get. Again, I really that's probably like the quintessential noob comment about Classic. The best gear in the game, much, much harder to get in Live WoW. It's not an opinion, right? It's much, much harder to get. The content requires much more like effort and time, and there's so many more pieces of gear that to get the right item, Titan Forged, is actually the problem with the game. Like a lot of people really dislike this. It's so hard to get best in slot items with the right, items and item level and stats and all this in the game right now that it's basically causing people to quit the game. It's like an embarrassment of riches. There's so many different ways to get good gear that it makes it so much harder to get the best gear. Whereas in Classic, there's just a checklist. Run the dungeon or the raid over and over and over again until you get the item, and then you're done, right? So definitely not harder to get. I think that's especially people thinking like, oh, epics are this like really valuable item type. It's like, did you ever do MC? I don't know. Anyway, they meant more, and during their drawn-out pursuit, you don't mind your greens as much. So basically, this guy's talking about leveling, right? Because I don't understand how you could say greens at max level. That has to be about leveling. There's not a lot of epics while leveling in the live game either, so I don't know why this is a problem. But anyway, some you wore for so long they became as bizarrely dear to you as one of the comfiest, most worn in hoodies. So I wouldn't say that's a good thing. I would say that's a bad thing about Classic gearing. The fact that you're wearing a single piece of gear for potentially ever. Like, for example, the cloak from the chest piece from Baron Rivendare, right? Best in slot for like ever for casters. It's like the best piece in the game from the time you hit 60 to like, I'm pretty sure like through even past BWL. I'm not actually sure when people start replacing that. but it's like absurdly overpowered, right? It's very poorly made, if you ask me. Like the fact that it has so many more stats than just about every other chest in the game, especially the blues, don't really look at that as a good thing about Classic. So I don't know. Lastly, enjoy having a clear, linear path forward towards a specific goal rather than RNG from many sources, determining many goals at once for me. Sure. Okay. So that you probably should have led with that, right? Because that's definitely the difference there. That doesn't make gear harder to get, though. That actually makes gear easier to get, but it's less frustrating to get. So that's totally understandable. That's overwhelming and underwhelming at the same time. That's a good way to put it. In the past, picking one thing to work towards and grinding it out. Right. So like basically what we just talked about, doing one dungeon over and over and over again until you check the box there, you get the item you wanted, and then you never do it again. That's, you know, fine if you like that about Classic, but that's one of the things I'm not looking forward to because eventually the content will have no purpose for me, and that's one of the reasons I love the live game with Mythic Plus and Titan Forging and Azerite Power and all this. There's always a reason to do 5-mans and raids and everything, so... Anyway, knowing that my time was bringing me closer towards reward, even if quite slowly, it was relaxing. Okay, I'm not looking to be relaxed when I'm gearing, that's for sure. Classes actually feel like classes rather than melee DPS, range DPS, tank healer with tiny differences. I mean, that's just frankly false. Obviously, nobody's played. This person's not actually done competitive content in BFA. Absolutely wrong. If that was the case, then you wouldn't see the meta the way it is. And I'm sure this person knows that. They're just being very obtuse about the comment, especially with what they're going to say here. Utility is still a thing rather than being pruned in favor of more DPS abilities in BFA. I don't know. I mean, you literally can't say this. This is just wrong. It's just false, right? I mean, utility is probably the most imbalanced it's ever been. I mean, that's even, like, compared to Classic, it's nothing. Some classes are just so abundantly powerful because of utility. I mean, you could look at Ellie Shaman, you could look at Rogue, you can look at Demon Hunter. These are the best specs in the game, not because they have more DPS abilities, even though that's also part of it. Anyway, unique abilities and random meme spells like Eye of the Beast exist even though they have little practical use. That is actually one that is very, I totally agree with. And Class Fantasy, definitely stronger in Classic. They try to revive it in Legion and BFA, and it's definitely better than it was in MoP and WoD, in my opinion. But, yeah, it's much better in Classic and TBC, of course. There are more than 4 stats on gear. Okay, so hit, crit, weapon skills, spell power, resist, block value, defense, class-specific items such as totem and legion. Gear is diverse. Yes, it is, and that's not a good thing if you ask me. Gear is very, very, very poorly made in Classic to the point where, like we were just describing, a blue from a dungeon that you could farm all day, every day might be better than most raid gear. Almost all raid gear, really. I mean, almost all raid gear. So that's not good, and I wish they would. Not that they're going to. I don't really think they should, but I kind of wish that they could just completely rebalance all gear in the game. Because if you had actual gear, like proper gear hierarchy in Classic, I think it would be a much, much better project. Much better product entirely. That's one of the things I am least interested in Classic is the gearing. I feel like you can get, like gearing best in slot lists are so all over the place. It's like, all right, AV, best slot. Nax, best slot. It's like, well, how are these two things the best? It doesn't even make sense, you know? Anyway, dungeons are meant to be speedruns while chain pulling and AoEing everything you see. They're meant to be heroes fighting their way into the lair of their enemies and defeating the bad guys against all odds. You aren't invincible, and it shows. Okay, well, first of all, you're not invincible in Mythic Plus dungeons either, so you can just not make comments like that. If you didn't say that, I would probably have understood your point more. But this is just, like, the epitome of, like, nostalgia, right? This is, like, the epitome of being a noob, right? Like, what the hell are you talking about, man? Have you ever seen how people do private server dungeons? They do exactly what you're saying. They bring, like, multiple mages and whatever, and they just AoE everything down. Like, it's exactly played like it is in the modern game. I think people are going to be in for a shock when they see how people do 5-mans, like, seriously, in Classic. Basically, skip everything that you don't have to fight, and just go at it. You can't possibly wipe. You overgear the shit out of everything. Because, you know, gearing is so permanent in Classic, so once you have the gear, there's no challenge to the dungeon anymore. Yeah, I don't know. This is the kind of stuff I really worry about, is these kind of comments, because it's like, you're basically not even looking at things clearly. You're just remembering how you feel like things were, and not actually looking at how things are. Anyway, leveling is more fun because you get to explore so much more of the world than in BFA. Is that why? All right, sure, if you think. Enemies are actually a threat, and players are encouraged to group up and socialize rather... Well, actually, that's not true at all. They're definitely not encouraged to group up. Things like the shared tag system. They removed the experience split, or they didn't remove it, but it's like hardly matters at all anymore because of how much quests give more than actual kills. Things like shared herbing, really. Let's see. I mean, basically everything about questing in Classic encourages you to play alone, right? Or leveling it in general in Classic, because the shared item drops, right? So if like an item drops from a mob, all players in the party can get it. They can all get the objectives on the ground. That doesn't happen in Classic. Yeah, so basically for Classic being like as remembered as social as it is for leveling, it's really the opposite to me. Like when I level, I don't want to see a single other player. It would be optimal for me to see zero other players. Never another player, because it means I can do the quests exactly when I want to do them. The items are always going to be there, and the drops are going to be much more consistent. I don't have to worry about whether or not I have to kill 50 mobs and I'm competing with another person to get those 50 mobs killed. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really surprised to see people say this so frequently, because, running around alone and ignoring everyone is exactly what happens in Classic. You want to avoid people at all costs, unless you're seriously worried about staying alive, and if you are, you should probably just grind instead of doing quests. Anyway, the world feels larger because so much more of it is important. Definitely agree. That's the best part about Classic, is that every zone pretty much has some value. And especially even with professions, right? Like herbing, sometimes you need herbs to make stuff for max level that are from low level stuff. It's really cool. I really like that. Everyone needs to, so he actually says the same thing. Wool will always sell. Level fine greed items can make you money from enchant. Exactly. All of this stuff, totally agree. Totally agree. It's really cool about Classic. Faction conflict is more grounded in reality. All right. Old wounds are still fresh, and we have no reason to trust one another. Did you play Battle for Azeroth? I don't know. The Horde has reasons to hate the Alliance, okay, and can still reasonably be called honorable and misunderstood savages. Okay, I don't know how you're going to say this compared to the live game. But anyway, TLDR classes feel like distinct choices rather than coats of paint. I think he meant to say specs. I totally understand that. Item design is superior. Couldn't fucking disagree more. Like, absolutely absurd that anybody would even say this. Dungeon design is more interesting because it isn't a Diablo 3 speedrun like BFA. Okay. Maybe the first time I would agree. After that, I wouldn't really agree. Obviously, Battle for Azeroth Mythic Plus dungeons are going to be more interesting than Classic dungeons, in my opinion. Anyway, content lasts longer because gear is so varied from stuff that's 10 levels lower, below cap, and is used several raid tiers deep. So that's not really a good thing if you ask me, but I guess you're right. It does last longer, but there's ways to make it last even longer. Like Battle for Azeroth has Mythic Plus dungeons and Titan Forging and other systems that are just way better than, okay, the gear is really bad, poorly designed, so I need to go do 5-mans to get gear that's better than raid gear. That's not really, I don't think that's good design. Anyway, the world matters literally forever. Totally agree. Leveling feels challenging and yet rewarding. I think a lot of the challenge, just again to say, I think a lot of the challenge is because you're inexperienced with leveling, but it, definitely does feel rewarding, and the pacing of it. It's really the pacing. The pacing of it is very good. But I think BFA's leveling is actually, the pacing is really good too. The story is more believable. There's basically no story, so I don't know. Anyway, okay, Drakonov. Sharding and cross server makes me feel like I'll never see the same player again. Right, cross server is the reason. Sharding, not so much. That's not really a problem there, but yeah, cross server is the main reason. So I don't feel like there's any punishment for poor social behavior on my or another player's end of the table. Frankly, there's not. I feel like this is very overblown in Classic. People have this like really weird memory of this. It's like if you were rude a single time, everybody on the server was going to remember it. I don't know why people remember this, but yeah, okay, maybe that's the case. So having a server and server community where players are known and have reputations is really important. Again, that happens on Live WoW just as much as it does on Classic. The difference is it's not happening on the server level. It's happening above the game, and I think that's better because when you have a server community, you're restricted to the people on your server. But when you have a higher level community, you could interact with those people regardless of what you're doing, It's a lot better, to know like, all right, well, this guy is like one of the top blood DKs in the world. Let's check him out. I know him because of that higher level of the game, YouTube, Twitch, Discord, streams, all this stuff, Server community is fine, but I would much rather talk to the best Death Knight in the world than the best Death Knight on my server. You understand? Anyway, the human brain can't parse the sheer number of players playing the game at one time. That's actually a good point. You actually actually really countered my point very well there. You're probably right. In fact, I've heard about like a number of human being interactions that is like, once you have this many, it's too many. You can't go above it. So that's actually a great point. Anyway, it's great to develop as a crafter, PvPer, raider, dungeoneer, and have every path of progression heavily supported. Okay, in retail, it feels like the only viable progression path is item level for the majority of players, unless you're playing hardcore PvE or PvP. Well, what else is there? What's there in Classic? I don't understand. I mean, it's about gearing, right? It's about progressing your character along that strength metric. So, anyway, blacksmithing and only blacksmithing. Wait, only doing content that enhances your blacksmithing was a viable way to play Classic WoW. But for what? What were you using the blacksmithing stuff for? I don't understand. If it's not to improve your character's power, then what's the point? What do you talk? What kind of content enhances your blacksmithing? This I don't understand this at all. It's not that I even disagree with it. I just don't understand it. If you're only a blacksmith in live, you can't do anything useful. I don't. You have to do the like. What's the point? I don't get it. You don't provide a necessary service. You don't contribute amazing gear to raiders. Well, that's not true. But the problem is you contribute amazing gear to yourself, so that's a very different. You don't bring strong quality of life to non-raiders. You do in Classic? You hardly even make gold, good gold doing it now. That's true. I mean, you definitely don't make as much money with blacksmithing in, I don't know though. Back in the day, being a good blacksmith, engineer, enchanter, etc. gave you and your character serious value in game. I guess. I don't. It's a really weird thing to be citing. I don't understand it. It's like, it's just a profession. It's just there to boost your character's position. You know what I mean? It's not like a fucking content pathway. I don't know. Now, the only thing that matters is your item level and the fingers playing the character. In Classic, the character matters more than the player. I don't agree with that. I don't understand it, honestly. Anyway, part of this multi-part progression is the social element. Maybe you are a warrior. Oh my god, it's long. But you don't have blacksmithing. You wanted alchemy for healing pots. There's a good blacksmith that you know. What do you mean by a good blacksmith? It's just you just get the patterns and there's no skill involved. Anyway, he has all the recipes for all the items you need. Why not add him to your friends list? Or maybe you ran a dungeon with the guy in the best PvP guild on your server one time. You joined comms. Everyone had a great time. Now and again, you get into their battlegrounds, and if they have a spare slot, that happens in live. I mean, I don't see how these are different. Anyway, the game is slow-paced enough and demands enough social interaction. I think that's false, honestly. That you benefited greatly at all levels of play for being social and developing relationships. I don't agree with that at all. Even if they are just semi-professional with other players. I think the point is that you make more random contact with people, but that's not a relationship, right? Like, I hope people understand that. Like, seeing another player out in the world and be like, hey, man, you want to kill this mob that is pointless for me to kill with you, but it's fun to do it together? Yeah, we'll do it together. It's like, okay. That's not a relationship. What the fuck you're talking about? Like, are you going to play with this guy for the rest of the time? I don't know. Maybe that happens more because of that. But it's like, I think people are really narrow-minded when they come to this. Like, they don't understand that this could happen in the live game, too. You just aren't making an effort to make it happen. It's not like the game fundamentally prevents you from doing it. You also prevent you from doing it. Anyway, WoW is an MMO, and a fundamental part of MMO play is player interaction, right? Again, on live, you have no reason to group or guild unless you're pushing ranking in Mythic rating or Arena. That's the same as Classic. You really don't. Like, it's so weird to hear so many people say that about Classic. It's like, you should not be in a group while leveling. It is slower, okay? Factually. It's not even an opinion. So I don't know what people are even talking about. Anyway, there's not a lot of gameplay incentive to play with others on live. That's not true. But in Classic, you really do need to interact with other players if you want the best experience with the game. That's not a gameplay incentive. The best experience with the game. Maybe, it's more fun to play with other people, but equally in both products, okay? For sure. I don't know. I just don't get these. Characters have many defined strengths and weaknesses that you cannot possibly have all of your bases covered at once in Classic. That I understand for sure, because it's like I always say, live, playing the game like live, overcoming challenges as an individual in live is like building a house with every tool available. Very difficult, very arduous process, but you have so many tools available that you can learn and adapt quickly. But in Classic, it's like cutting a plank of wood with a wrench. You know what I mean? It's possible, but goddamn, you're going to need some help. You're going to need more than a wrench to do it, I think. So that's definitely the case in Classic. But I definitely disagree that defined strength and weaknesses aren't also present in BFA. It's just those weaknesses are not as impactful in BFA. That's the way I'd look at it. This isn't a bad thing because other players can have immense strength in the areas where you lack and where both of you are flawed individually. Together you can come. Yeah, that's totally understandable. I like that. Classic is a very social game. I think it's really just 2004 that was very social. Anyway, Live WoW is an incredibly antisocial game. I understand why people say that because of things like LFR and LFG and stuff, and I wish that they were removed so that can go away, but again, being anti-social is your choice. That's how you play the game. I don't have that experience at all. I can only enjoy Live WoW as a super hardcore game. Good, because that's probably the best way to enjoy it. But in Classic, I feel like I can just hang out and enjoy the ride. So this is where we got to, right? We're getting to the point now where people are like actually admitting that they want to be noobs again. And I worry about this. I really do. Because it's like, if you want to be a noob, what's going to make you want to play the game for decades when other people stop playing it? I don't know. I worry about this. I feel like you have to have some goal, some drive, some competitive element in the game. Even if it's at the lowest level of competition, it has to be there. So if like you can just hang out and enjoy the ride, well, I mean, you could do that in Discord. You know what I mean? You don't need a game for that. So that's the worry I have. But that's how I play the game. There are going to be times when I play both. I will probably play 8.2. I will absolutely play Classic. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. I'm not choosing WoW Classic over retail. I quit Legion before Blizzard even announced that they were going to do WoW Classic. Okay, so this really isn't one that I want to read, but we'll read it anyway. I'm choosing WoW Classic because it's vanilla WoW, the game I started playing in 2006, and kept playing well past actually enjoying it. I quit early MOP because I woke up and realized I was not having fun. I was logging in and logging back right back out. Okay, cool. Sounds like you probably shouldn't. Yeah, don't force yourself to play it. Specific things in vanilla WoW Classic that do not exist in retail. All talent trees available from the first point you get until you're level 60. Okay. Yeah, talent trees are great while leveling. I agree. Star shards, weakness of the hex, of course, man. The good old days. Priest specific abilities. Very, very cool. What's that considered? That's class unique. What's it called? Class fantasy. That's what I love about Classic. A rare quality item, blue being valuable. An epic quality item, purple being hard to get without serious investment of time and effort. A legendary orange requiring group effort. That was really cool. Legendaries in Classic were really unique, but there's only 2 of them, right? Yeah, there was only 2 of them, right? Am I wrong? 3? 2? I don't know. Anyway, very little. So most people would never have one, right? So it's like, I don't know. I didn't really like that. If there was a legendary for like many different roles, then I would totally agree with you. But it felt like Anathema and Benediction, whatever, like those should have been a legendary. That would have been way cooler. Have one for like healers, have one for tanks, have one for DPS, something like that, you know? Anyway, healing, plus healing power. So many other stats to find interesting ways to work with. Yeah, stat diversity was interesting. As long as you look at it that way, I totally agree. Stat diversity was very interesting. You can make different types of combinations, but there was just so little gear in the game. Like, there was just not enough ways to mix and match. It's like already mathematically figured out what the best pieces are now. So, again, it's like I'd love to go back to being a noob, but I'm an adult now. I can't do that, you know? Enough questing to keep me engaged for years. Legion zones lasted me less than 2 months, over 2 characters, and I couldn't stomach doing them again. I thought you quit in MOP. Anyway, enough questing to keep me engaged for years. I don't know about that, man. I don't know how that's the case, but, you know, I think you could have just said, I really like leveling in Classic, and I don't really like it in Live WoW, and I would totally agree with that. Full dungeons that aren't timed races. Okay, people are going to keep bringing this up. It's, you know, I feel like it's regrettable that the timers are such a big focus of Live WoW, but that's really the only way to make an adequate competitive atmosphere. Like, otherwise, the dungeons, no matter how difficult they are, they would be way too easy. Like, you can just literally just sit there and wait for cooldowns, and then the pack is trivial. Like, that's not competitive, you know what I mean? So people don't want competitive play, basically admitting that. And that's a problem for me. So anyway, with elites outside guarding the portals, yeah, that's cool. Getting to the dungeon, way cooler in Classic. They kind of had little flashes of that in Live WoW, but still, like 50% of the dungeons are literally just the portal's just there. You just walk in, nothing at all. Patrols inside. I mean, there's patrols in Live WoW dungeons too. Dead ends or circuitous routes that took time to learn. Again, that's just being a noob, right? Like, you can just look at a map. It doesn't take long to learn at all unless you're like you have some kind of memory disorder. Anyway, maximum level of 60, max profession level of 300. Interesting point. I mean, that's not really a point, but it's actually, I would kind of agree too, just because the smaller numbers, I don't know, 120 levels, not a big fan. I wish they would squish it. There's also a pretty hefty list of what is retail that is not in vanilla that adds to the above, but this is already getting long. Okay, I agree. I'll go through all of my reasons. Let's see, another long one. Leveling experience is more immersive and is built more like a classic MMO. Correct. The game level today feels like nothing but the end game matters. Right, and that's a product of it being 15 years old, honestly. I don't think that's really like something that they could change at this point. In vanilla, they could, but they're not going to. Anyway, in vanilla, your professions actually mean something as you level. It's a good point, I guess, but that's also because leveling is just not really important anymore, right? The length of time it takes from 1 to 60 is long, and the economy is balanced in all stages of the game. That's true. The talent system, to me, is fair, I guess, far more superior. For leveling, 100% agree. Max level, definitely disagree. You get rewarded 1 point every level, so leveling actually means something good. I agree there. I also love spending hours and hours theory crafting. That's done already, buddy. I hate to tell you that, man. That's the thing that sucks about Classic is there's not really going to be any gear changes or any new things to theory craft unless they start buffing and nerfing classes, which I would be totally in favor of, but everybody else seems to be not in favor of. So I don't know what you're spending hours and hours theory crafting on a 15-year-old game. That's not really something I understand. Also, an avenue for customization and roleplay for a character. Roleplay. That's a weird way to describe theory crafting. Anyway, dungeons felt rewarding. Overall, the game felt more rewarding. Okay. Yeah, I this whole feel thing is very psychological thing, and I could agree, but I could also disagree. I see your point. Let's put it that way. I can't pinpoint the exact reason why, right? That's the problem, isn't it? But I think it's because rewards were fewer. It's a psychological thing, and it's not something that I'm really too worried about in either version of the game. A lot of the time required a lot of figuring things out. Again, if you're a noob. As a new player, attunements were not easy to figure out, right? As a noob, yep, agree. Nor were all the quests were, if you're a noob, all the time, all the items either. Again, now with Wowhead and things like that, it's just not a factor. Today's WoW rewards are frequent, and they all come in an easy predict formula. That's true. They're more easy to predict if you're new now than they were in Classic, but regardless, when you know everything about both versions of the product, neither are hard to predict. Equally hard. Neither are equally hard to predict. PvP was my favorite thing to do in Classic WoW. It was so much more fun to me. Why? I think the damage to health ratios were lower. I definitely agree with that. Meaning having an initiative advantage of an opponent meant a lot, and lucky crits were quite amusing. Oh. So that's not what I thought you were going to say. So I don't really agree with that. In fact, it's probably not. I think it might even be factually wrong. But anyway, I don't know much about PvP, so I'm not going to get into that. At first, even me back in Classic WoW thought that was a bad thing, but in hindsight, it really wasn't. Okay, yeah, so it seems like you're torn on this as well. I'm not really sure what the truth is, but I'm pretty sure it's equally important to have the initiative advantage in live WoW. If you do 3 globals before another person does 3 globals, you're probably going to win that, right? That's just how it works. Anyway, today PvP is more predictable, longer, and though there may be less RNG, it is less fun in my opinion. Yeah, there's a lot of RNG in Classic PvP, that's for sure. I like being one-shot. Okay, I do not. I also liked how different classes were from each other. Each class felt significantly different in style in PvP. Don't know anything about PvP, so let's move on. I love the roleplay elements. You mean the RPG elements? Yeah, I have a fondness for that too. Having to buy bullets, huge cost of buying mounts, 1-hour hearths. Yeah, all of that stuff I could like a lot too. No LFG tool. Again, that's a structural thing, but yeah, definitely agree. I love us all suffering together to accomplish a long goal. I don't love suffering, but yeah, accomplishing a long goal is something I enjoy in both versions of the game. The journey is not meant to be easy. Well, it's probably going to be this time around. We see a level 60, and we know that things they had to go through. Yeah, kill mobs over and over again. I don't know. Anyway, wow, where to start? Okay, got a list of things. Old AV, one of my favorite things ever. 40-man raids, one of my favorite things ever. Player reputation has meaning. I disagree that that's different in Classic than in PvP and BFA. PvP is down and dirty. No immortal healers, and players are very fragile. That's what the previous guy was saying. I can understand that being interesting. Slower pace of combat where the game doesn't feel like Street Fighter 2. Okay, yeah, I guess you haven't played BFA. Long, complicated dungeons. It's cool, but again, I think you're going to see people play them very differently. BRD especially. You think about it as a long, complicated dungeon, but nobody runs it that way. CC is required to progress through dungeons. Disagree. Elite quests are actually tough, right? But they're useless. Long quests that span multiple zones, such as Lincoln. That is fucking awesome. That's one of the coolest things about WoW in the early days, spanning multiple zones. And I hate that it's basically been removed from the live game, but it has to be. Like, with the way they're scaling the zones now, I think that's much better tech than otherwise, and they have to do that. So, okay, we are 17, by the way, 17 posts through. Let's get over there. Leveling curve is long. Oh, no store bought mounts or pets. Who cares? Level 60 has far more meaning. Disagree. Old talent trees, cool while leveling. Rotations are simple. That's a bad thing. Epics are rare. No, they're not. Classes were very unique and brought unique abilities. Yeah, I guess so, but again, I don't really how you could say that. How you could be comparing that to BFA, it's like, what the hell are you actually talking about? Look at a Demon Hunter or a Rogue Man and tell me they don't bring unique abilities. Anyway, some hard quests made you get help or wait till you leveled more, right? Or grinded mobs and not cared about them, out-leveled them. No flying, number 1 right there, man. I'm ready to have no flying in live WoW, let's put it that way. Earning a mount was a big accomplishment. Class quests like Pally lock mounts, really cool. Definitely agree. Sense of server community, again, we talked about this at length. Being in a guild serve a purpose, still does. You don't replace gear non-stop. That's true. I don't think that's a good thing. Enchanting system was much deeper and involved. Definitely true. Enchanting is way, 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 way better in the early days. Tanks had to have skill to hold aggro and gain threat. Skill, okay. Good DPS players knew how to hold back for fear of taking aggro. That's true. If you put those 2 points into one, I would say the group had to have skill. Let's put it that way. The tank really doesn't have to do anything. They just hit a button and attack the target, and that's it. It's really based on the damage dealers, and there's a lot of ways to work around that. Resist gear was needed for certain fights. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that. It's unique. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure that I could come up with a lot more. All right. Golden professions are actually meaningful. That's obviously the same way as it is in Live WoW. This hasn't been true since MOP now for the retail game. It's objectively false when you could buy fucking game time with gold. I don't know how you could even say that. I also like having just 1 or 2 versions of dungeons and raid. I'm okay with an easy and hard mode, but not infinite scaling. Yeah, so, for it to be a hard mode, to actually be hard, it has to scale. So, understand it. I don't like the time limit either. Okay, I understand that, but that's just the way of it. All right, this guy's replying to that guy. Also worth repeating it because it's one of the biggest downfalls for BFA. Classes feel the same now, with melee, rank tanked, and healing being the 4 roles. Even stealth doesn't feel very unique. It's a gap closer. Okay, I just don't believe you played Live WoW, honestly. I don't know what else there is to say about that. I think that's just objectively false. Anyway, boycotted arena. Okay, this guy's replying. I'm not going to read the replies. I think Classic gives you a more engaging experience with your character and the game itself. Fair enough. I can understand why you would say that, and at times I would agree for sure. Class identity. Modern WoW has 4. Why do people keep saying this? I don't get it, man. I don't get it. It's like you guys have never done any serious content. Anyway, importance of community and player reputation. No LFD, LFR, only a single difficulty for everything. So really, again, the problem with this is cross-server stuff. It has nothing really to do with LFD and LFR. They could have been existing the whole time and only used your server, and it would have worked the exact same way. No catch-up mechanics. Patently false, obviously. That's what ZG is. That's what AQ20 is. That's what the D2 gear is, or whatever, D1.5, whatever you call it. Rep material grinds that can't reasonably be completed by one person working alone. So you're talking about the AQ stuff. Very, very, very unique. And I do miss stuff like that in modern WoW. Vanilla WoW has hailed as a revolution in MMORPGs by catering a lot more to solo play. But I think WoW has progressed too far in the other direction. Yeah, it's ironic that you bring that up, right? Like all these people talking about like not solo play, but it's like... yeah, it's actually like compared to EverQuest and stuff, like you literally had to have other people to do things. Like you could not possibly do things without other people. Anyway, Modern WoW is a solo game you play with other people. I would say so is Classic. Rating / loot mystique. Only the best players got to see the later raids. No, that's false. Blizzard sees this as a failure, but I think it actually drove the community aspect to an extent. I think the community drove the community aspect to the extent. Like, I really just don't think you're going to see this again in the live game, man. In the new version of Classic. You want to raid Nax 40? You better be good, experienced, and prepared. It's not hard to be good, experienced, and prepared, though, right? It's like you can do that. Any human being can do that. If you could fucking go to the store and buy food, you can play a video game. You know what I mean? It's not hard. I don't know. They're an endgame raider or PvPer. You see someone in fancy matching gear. I guess so. The gear, the no transmog thing is a fine point, I suppose. Today, everyone looks good, but at the same time, you can't really tell anything important about anyone by just looking at them. Well, thanks to like add-ons like Raider IO and even inspecting them, I would disagree. Having even a single purple item was a major milestone and something to be proud of. Like, that's just pure nostalgia talking, pure being a noob. Like that, it's just not true, man. I mean, what are you talking about? Look at some of the epics in the game, dude. There's epics in the game that are so fucking bad they won't even sell. Like Ice Mail Jerkin, probably the best example, right? Absolutely useless item that you get. It's like a level 40 mail piece. Garbage. You know what I mean? Maybe is that the right name? There's like gear in the game that you get while leveling that's epic that is so bad. Like Hurricane. I think it's like a bow, right? I can't remember the names of things very well. You get these items that are so fucking bad. They're just rare. That's it. They're useless. They're worse than a green. It's like, this is not a good thing. You know what I mean? Having that is not a good thing. It's a downgrade. You know what I mean? Much better feeling of progression. The slower pace of leveling and the fact that you gain a talent point every level and new skill every other level just felt better to me. Yeah, the pacing of Classic, one of the milestones for me, for sure. Training skills, researching builds, saving up gold to earn your slow amount of 40. It just made me feel more invested. I understand that. Leveling a zone before you finish all the quests just never happened. It depends on how much you grinded. These are all things that got optimized out of the game, but the feeling of any sense of real progression seems to have gone with it. Again, I think that's just the product of people have been there, done that. That's probably the best way to look at it. Nobody really wants to spend all this time leveling characters anymore. It's just not how it is anymore. Big 5-mans. Vanilla dungeons were awesome, and I'm sorely disappointed that Blizzard decided to go back to short 5-mans in BC and never look back. The problem is having a big 5-man is really a misnomer, right? Because it's like no matter how big the dungeon is, there's only so many bosses. It's not like it had like, like Karazhan in Legion and now the Mechanome dungeon in BFA. That's a big dungeon. That has 8 bosses and it has, no matter what you do, you got to do all 8 of them. You know what I mean? And it's going to be split up into Mythic Plus eventually, into 4 and 4, I'm sure. But that's definitely still present in the live game, and frankly it's better because in the old game there was so many ways that you could circumvent doing most of the trash. Can't really do that in Mythic Plus especially, but even in other difficulties it's a lot harder. To this day, vanilla dungeons are still my favorite. Some of vanilla dungeons are still my favorite too, but there's so few of them that it's really tough to look at. Like, okay, so you're talking about Sunken Temple. Well, you're not going to do that at max level, are you? Wailing Caverns, you're not going to do that at max level. So, considering it's slow to do Wailing Caverns to get experience, bad idea, I'm just not going to ever do Wailing Caverns. I wish Classic had a heroic dungeon feature. If it did, it might honestly be one of my favorite products ever. Because it's just such a shame that there's basically only 5 dungeons that you do at max level. Yes, they took forever, but the overall slower pace of the game, it was appropriate and well worth the effort. Definitely not well worth the effort. Anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing and exploring pre-Cata Azeroth again. I only had a couple years of pre-Cata 1 to 60 questing as a Wrath baby and many more of the post-Cata Azeroth and questing. I'll agree with that for sure. I also like leveling and I like professions. While I dabble in dungeons and raids, I don't focus on endgame content, and I like the fact that leveling 1 to 60 is a major part of the game rather than something you need to get through ASAP to get to start. But that is the case, right? It's still that way in Classic. It's just your perspective of it. It's still that way. To get to the real game, which is the part of the game that you're going to play on a single character for a very long time, you have to level. That's it. There's no repetitive leveling content. It's not like World Quests where you can go and do these quests over and over again. You do them once, move on if you're going to do them at all. In my opinion, you shouldn't. But anyway, you do whatever you're going to do to level and get on with it. Now you're max level. That's it. There's no going back to leveling that same character, So you could restart characters on live too if you really wanted to. I'm looking forward to a feeling of power progression again, where mobs that were challenging at 30 will disintegrate at 55. I guess you haven't. I'm not even sure what you're talking about there. I guess people are talking about like level scaling, but obviously the level scaling stopped. So if you went back to level 60 zone or level 80, I'm pretty sure the mobs are going to disintegrate. Anyway, I remember, although I've forgotten more than I remember, that pre-Cata questing was less linear and more sandbox-ish than what's out there now. We talked about this a bit. I totally like the fact that the zones are all kind of interconnected with some quests. That's really cool. Like you, I actually do enjoy the current game, but I'm also very excited for Classic. Oh, good. It's good to see that. And will likely play that more than BFA once it's released. Okay, let's see what he has to say. I'll start with what I like currently. Mythic Dungeons and Raids. How long is this? I feel like this is going to be really long. All right, not too bad. Let me get a drink here. Especially Mythic Plus. Mm. Working with people to overcome more difficult content is fun. I like the idea of island expeditions and warfronts, but they didn't hit the mark. Totally agree on that. Now for what will have me spending more time in Classic over the moderate iteration. The entire trip to max level matters again. 1 to 59 isn't something simply to get out of the way before the real game starts. I mean, it is for me. Like, that's the way I feel about it. You know what I mean? I still feel like I've done this stuff so many times. I feel like that's just the way of it. Like, if you've done it so many times, it just loses its value, and that's the way it is. Dungeons in general. In retail, they are a joke until you hit max level and start doing mythic and higher. I miss having to actually use some strategy and not just roll through everything by pulling all the mobs into a pile and AoEing them into oblivion. Low-level dungeons are definitely harder in Classic, but they have less of a purpose, so I don't know. Running dungeons in vanilla and TBC are what made me truly fall in love with WoW. If they actually get, like, if leveling through dungeons was a viable way to level a character that wasn't just like 10 times slower than every other option, I would totally agree with you. If it was, it would probably be my favorite leveling experience ever. There would be no way it would be any better. But yeah, doing dungeons in live WoW is, maybe it's easy, but it's way more effective. So I don't know. Professions matter again. I don't think I've encountered anyone that would declare BFA professions to be useful outside of alchemy. Hi, you can make mythic raiding gear with professions. End of story. Anyway, server community, we've sacrificed this in the name of convenience with the automatic cross-realm LFD feature. Sort of. The bigger problem is the fact that there's like 50 realms. They should have never made this many realms. And this is what I've been talking about here a couple times now. They made too many realms. So this is going to happen again in Classic. I don't know, like, people just don't see it coming, I guess. They're going to make too many realms, and then they're going to have to solve the problem. That's how they solved the problem in Live WoW. They made cross-realm stuff. So what do you want? Not that? You just want realms that have 10 people on them? That's not good for the game, man. And it's probably not good for Blizzard's bankroll, you know what I mean? I don't know how paying for servers and stuff, like how much that works, but yeah, that's not a good thing. Anyway, I'm grouped with people I'll never encounter again, from other servers to face roll dungeons. 95% of the time, they don't even respond to hello all. Right, because there's no reason to. Like, there's nothing to talk about, you know what I mean? Just go do the dungeon. You're there to do the dungeon, get it over with. I don't know. I think that's, again, a product of not just the game, but also the people doing the stuff. It's like, if we wanted to talk, we could get in Discord. We have something to talk about. I don't have anything to talk about when I'm doing a leveling dungeon. What's there to talk about? Hello, all. Hey. Okay, let's do the dungeon now. You know what I mean? Anyway, classes feel much better. To play devil advocate for BFA, I feel like the devs are starting to try to move away from the homogenization from the last several years of the game. They are. It's factually the case, right? Like, they added back buffs. That's all you need to know, you know what I mean? But there's a long way to go yet. The classes I play now basically use 3 or 4 abilities almost exclusively. That's more than Classic, though, right? I don't know. Adding progression to my list for Classic, I feel much more invested in my character because I feel like my character is growing during the leveling process. Again, it seems like it's almost always about leveling, and I really worry about this. No sharding. More choices in talent. Well, no sharding. There's actually going to be sharding in Classic, by the way. More choices in talents. Just to be clear, they said it's only going to be for, like, the beginning of the game. Whenever it's, like, crazy, they have to do it. Otherwise, the servers will crash. Anyway, more choice in talents. I mean, it's true, right? Technically, but a lot of the choices aren't actual choices, and honestly, there's a lot more impact in the choices in, like, things like Azerite gear, if you ask me. Anyway, more community than today, although I'm sure not like it was. Right, exactly. I'm glad somebody finally understands that it's not going to be like that. You're not going back to 2004, man. People still use smartphones and Discord and shit to communicate, okay? No more chasing the rabbit. There's a cap which allows for more character development and not feeling one has to race. Yeah, is that a good thing, though? Like, do we really want there to be an endpoint? Do you, especially in a game that's going to have an endpoint in content as well? I don't know, man. I don't know why people like this. Smaller world, which will help with community. Smaller world. I guess what he means is, like, less different areas in the world. But the world's definitely bigger. Like, Azeroth, like, proper old Azeroth's definitely larger than, like, Zandalar or Kultiris or whatever, you know? Anyway, character of a person will count a lot more. I don't know, man. I understand the people who have, like, these memories of these, like, lasting impressions of people. But it's like, there's not some, like, social credit score that's going to happen in Classic, right? Some, like, accumulation of every good and bad thing you ever did. It's still going to be like, that's just a person. I don't give a fuck. I don't know them. If they're in my dungeon, I don't really care. You know what I mean? But if they develop a bad reputation, one that's obtuse, really obtrusive, well, then I know them. That can still happen in live WoW. The difference is they can change their name. They could go incognito, basically. So I guess that's the difference. Anyway, I love the pacing of classic WoW. Me too. Slow down and immersive. Gives one a chance to truly soak up the atmosphere. I like how you were just a lowly peon at the start of the game, slowly working your way through the world. Me too, but I hope you realize that couldn't continue in BFA. In terms of character progression, it's not as interesting to start as an expansion as a world-renowned champion of Azeroth. But you are, right? Like you can't not be that unless you want to get the Men in Black memory eraser thing, right? I don't know. Anyway, I love exploring the enormous. Even by the end of Classic, you're a world-renowned champion of Azeroth. You kill a fucking old god. Think about what you do in Classic. It's absurd. It has to be that way. I love exploring the enormous content of Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms. So many zones. Expansions cannot match the amount of content and diversity provided in the base game. Definitely agree with that. I love the sense of danger in the open world. The fact that small mistakes would easily lead to your death. Small mistakes. I don't know about all that. Anyway, I love the fact that zones don't scale. There should exist areas that are too dangerous for you as you are leveling. That's still the case. You can't really go to Blasted Lands at level 20 and expect to live. It's okay that a video game is challenging and frustrating, and difficulty should not be a setting controlled by the player. That's interesting. I guess I could see the point, but the game is definitely more challenging in Live WoW than it is in Classic. So even if your point is interesting, I missed a part there. I love how little WoW Classic holds hands. It's true, but still completely false that Classic is more difficult than Live WoW, especially now. Like you've learned everything you need to learn about Classic, right? Anyway, there's one version of each dungeon and raid, no training wheels. That's a good point. That's actually a big deal. In fact, I just was exhibiting why it was a big deal the other day on stream, where I was going into normal dungeon to learn things about Mythic Plus dungeons. You can't do that in Classic, right? Anyway, your server was your universe in Classic. These were the players you would band together with or compete against throughout the original game. Yeah, I understand. I don't know. It's like, do you really want a limited amount of people that you can play with? I don't really want that. I would much rather have as many people as possible, no matter what that did. I love that there was only one version of each item. No Titanforge Casino minigame. Yeah, it's cool the first time you get the item, and then after that you realize there's no reason to ever get it again. I love that there was no transmog option. With a person look like in-game could tell you a lot more about the content they accomplished. That's true, but there's, transmog is not the only way to do that. I love the old talent tree system that allowed for more variety and experimentation compared to the condensed current talent trees. True, again, I agree, especially while leveling, but talent trees plus Azerite gear plus, gearing in general, there's definitely more options in BFA than there was in talent trees in Classic, because talent trees in Classic had so many forced choices. You had to have these spells. You had to take these. They were no-brainers. There was not really any options there. Anyway, BFA did not even add another talent row. I know, that's regrettable. I wish they did, but... BFA, not the shining example of it, but I think Azerite gear now especially... Oh, you're going to actually talk about that. The Azerite traits, for the most part, are uninteresting and don't spice up the gameplay. You should check out 8.15. Anyway, there is an extremely strong sense of class progress in Classic WoW. Very noticeable as you are leveling. Definitely during leveling, 100% agree. We're going to see this a lot. I know this is subjective, but the best way I could sum it up is that Classic WoW doesn't try to make you like it. It exists to be enjoyed by those who can acquire a taste for it. That's a really good way to put it, to be honest. I definitely feel like BFA has been designed to make sure everyone will enjoy it. That is actually a fucking outstanding point, man. You have made a very, 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 very good point here. Sometimes going for mass appeal can make a game lose its flavor. Probably the best statement made in this entire thread, man. Just going to pick one, and that's very slow and deliberate questing. When I recall back to RPGs I grew up, it was common that I'd progress on the main story and get walloped. Have to stop and think about what to do to beat it, get better gear, or grind a bit to get stronger. This is normal in Classic. It's like, sure, it is definitely feels like an actual RPG, but it's like once you've done that once, you're kind of done with that, So that's my big problem. Flex raiding kills the attendance demand. Guilds will show up for raids, but if they don't show, no big deal. At that point, the raid group switches to Mythic. They are doomed. I guess you're right, but it's like, surely it's better to be able to bring as many people as you could, right? I don't really see that as a problem. Anyway, ultimately, it's the need for guilds that has been removed. Yeah, obviously false. Anyway, if you're choosing... Okay, he's quoting my thing. I played Classic, TBC, Wrath, quit. Came back to tail end of WoD into Legion. It's just a completely different game. Vanilla was an RPG, and Legion was an arcade shooter version of WoW. I leveled an alt from 15 to 95, completely standing still in Stormwind. That's your choice. I had no idea who I grouped with, and it didn't matter. Okay, well, maybe you should have spent a little bit more time on that then. I had no idea how to do leveling dungeons, Cata Plus, but breezed through them without strategy or CC. Right, I mean, and then they made them harder in 7.3.5, and everybody fucking cried their eyes out, so I don't know. No mob in the game threatened me while questing, and I could actually 2 to 4 shot mobs. That's been changed. I never had to eat food or water as my passive regen abilities were sufficient for continued play. Right. Yeah, that's true. At level 110, I had less abilities on my heart bar than some level 40s in vanillas. Right, but it's not about how many abilities you have total. It's about how many you actually use and the way they're used. Much more intricate in BFA, obviously. Anyway, gear at 110 was a joke. You could do the hardest mythic 15s back during Emerald Nightmare, and all that gear is made obsolete by catch-up mechanics that reward waiting until the end of the expansion for the best loot. Right, but why would you wait? It's a video game. You're going to play it, aren't you? Like, I never understood this. People are like, it's better to just wait. So it's better to not play. It's better. So why are you playing the game in the first place? You know, if that's the case, wait 10 years. You know what I mean? Anyway, a new spell animation and new character model is a huge turnoff. Oh, I definitely disagree there. That's the one thing I'm definitely not looking forward to in Classic is going back to the old visuals. I definitely think the game looks a lot better now. I'm used to the game looking a certain way, and that art has more soul in it than the new higher detail items. That's really just nostalgia, isn't it? I think Warcraft 3 looks better than Warcraft Reforged. It's not the number of polygons, but the nostalgia is effectively what he's going to say. They destroyed my home of Azeroth by twisting the zones and adding flying in Cataclysm. I definitely miss some of the old zones too. Vanilla has no cross-realm sharding. You mean that's not what sharding is, first of all. But yeah, no cross-realm stuff. I agree, and like I said, I hope they find a way around that in Classic, because otherwise we're going to have some serious problems. I was starting to get annoyed by phasing and Wrath as well. Yeah, but it's like, you know, phasing is, I don't know. I don't see how anybody, like, it'd be nice to not have it, but it's like, all right, then the world has to always be the exact way it is. There's no way to change it, so. Anyway, in Classic, I just wanted to try the slower gameplay focused on leveling. I want to try to spend a week in Elwyn Forest leveling my professions, farming resources, doing Class A quest. Just exploring. It seems like retail WoW is all about rushing it, and even if you slow down, there's no need to slow down. It's always effective to just rush. That's going to be the same in Classic. What you're describing is going back to being a noob where you don't feel like you need to rush. I've recently tried an alt where I picked a class race faction combo I've never played. Forgot about LFG and heirlooms. I pretended that a low-level crafting profession can benefit me. It's fun, but I'd like to play a game where I wouldn't need to pretend. It's true. I understand that, but, you know, people, like, one of the most popular things in gaming is Pokemon Nuzlocke, right? And that seems to be very popular for a very reason. Like, you know, the pretending, making that challenge for yourself is actually a very viable way to play the game. So I do wish it wasn't that way in Live WoW, but it opens up more doors when you have that available, you know. I do admit the possibility it will all go stale very quickly, too. It will. It's just not it's more than a possibility. But I plan to play Classic as I play an alt. Just relax. Okay. So again, people openly admitting that they just want to be noobs and very, very casual in Classic. So understandable. If that's what you want out of the game, that is not what I want out of the game. Retail's become too arcadey. Things got stripped off to make it as easy as possible to get into the action, but it does belittle the action itself since there's no wait or preparation anymore. Yeah, I understand that totally, and I could agree, frankly. But, you know, I think getting into the actual competitive elements is much more important than preparing for those competitive elements. Hi all, I've played BFA and Legion. I actually enjoyed BFA quite a lot. I'm very excited for Classic WoW, and we'll be switching over to mainly playing Classic once it goes live. Interesting. Here is what I like / am excited about for the game. BFA. I really enjoyed the story mode questing the first time through. The quests are getting more immersive, filled with cutscenes and dialogue. While I enjoy this type of gameplay, it is not fun to do more than once, right? Kind of just like Classic, right? The spell graphic zones models keep continuing to amaze me. As an animation artist in real life, I appreciate the detail they put into everything in BFA Legion. Definitely a big part of it. I really enjoyed the concept of war mode, and I love the random PvP encounters while leveling up my allied race. But at max level, far too often it was a gank fest. I rarely encountered natural 1v1 PvP in max level war mode. Well, you'd think that's not going to be the case in Classic? Anyway, finally, I love allied races. I don't mind them being gated behind reps and quests. Nothing wrong with working hard to unlock something. Hey, I totally agree there. Okay, Classic. Classes were more fun and unique. Leveling felt more rewarding for your tune. You feel stronger and stronger with each level, and learning new spells, definitely agree there. Class quests were more important and fun. Unlocking bear form, for example, having to speak with the Great Bear in Moonglade. It definitely added a lot of class fantasy. Totally agree there. Armor upgrades felt impactful. Even getting a new green item made a difference. Definitely just as impactful in Live WoW. Again, it's a lot more tangible in Live WoW because you know when something's going to be an upgrade based on a better, like a visual representation of it, you know? Anyway, professions being relevant. Same as like they are in Live WoW. 1 to 60 zones being relevant. I wish it wasn't that way, but it can't only be one way, right? Like they can't make the entire game scale. People passing by you on the street being relevant. I don't see why that would change. Low-level dungeons being relevant. I guess for like farming materials, maybe. I don't know why they would be relevant for max-level players. Twinking. Still very much a thing. You should look into 111 twinking. It's actually really, really popular. And it's actually very profitable as well. Class buffs, back in BFA. Making friends. Not related to the video game. Having spells outside of your spec. That's one that I've seen a couple times and I sympathize with. I do wish it was that way, but overall, Classic WoW feels better. Everything you do feels meaningful. Leveling up, getting a new spell, finding new gear, making a new recipe, building friendships, the list goes on. This is why I will be switching over to Classic. BFA feels too much like a console story mode solo player game. You run through it once and then put it on your shelf. Nothing really worth repeating. I mean, I literally like feel the exact opposite. Like this is like the exact opposite for me. Everything you do feels meaningful. It's a complete opposite. Like leveling up, it's like not meaningful at all. All I'm trying to do is get to max level. Getting a new spell, all right, it's just like a math thing. Like, is it worth buying this new spell? Maybe not even at this point, you know? Finding new gear. While leveling, it's like, oh, I'm just going to go to the auction house and buy new gear every couple levels. Making a new recipe. Who cares? Building friendships. I have way more friendships on the live game than I ever would have on a classic game for sure. The list goes on, I guess so. BFA feels too much like a console solo player. It's because you're choosing to play it that way, right? You run through it once and then put it on your shelf. That's like the complete opposite. I mean, I've done some of these dungeons hundreds of times already. I don't know, man. Anyway, in fact, like the replayability of the live game is one of the things that I definitely I will worry about of classic because there's just not. It's not replayable enough, man. There's just not enough reasons to do the content over and over again for me. I felt little to no character progression. Leveling through BFA, even getting new gear each week felt hollow. Yeah, it's just, you know, because you're not a competitive player, I guess. Really, I don't know. I don't know how you can get gear in BFA and not feel like it's helping your character, especially in 5 minutes. Anyway, server community, the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with it. Hopefully it'll be the case. I think it will not be. In essence, guild servers becoming the face of the game again. I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. LFD would have been a great had it been a server only implement. Okay, so somebody else realizes that. I'm glad to see that for sure because that's definitely a thing. The same reason I prefer playing poker with my friends at a card table over playing video poker on my phone. I don't understand how that relates to classic, but regardless, I think you might be disappointed here. It's a very complicated answer that will take some time to explain. Oh, it's just too long, guys. Sorry, I can't read this. This is too long. I'm sure that he has some great points here, but it's just way too long. Let's read the last part. In Modern WoW, you do not really have much choice because the choices either don't change anything or the content is all the same. Myself as an Unholy Death Knight follows the same build no matter what raid or boss, no matter the dungeon, no matter what I'm doing in the world. Well, then you're just not very serious about your character, huh? There's very little I can do to build my character how I imagine him. I am forced... Right, well, that's true, for sure. But obviously, that's called balance. You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't want to play an Unholy Death Knight, then play something else. I don't know. Finally, to conclude it all, there is a matter of the grind. While Modern WoW has so many arbitrary gates, diminishing returns, and timers, keeping all players near the same pace of one another, that your own personal persistence is worthless. They're not my parents, nor my doctor. If I want to grind until I have a stroke, then give me the freedom to do so. Yeah, you say you do, but you don't, right? That's like a great example of the J. Allen Brack quote actually meaning something here. That is not really a good thing for the game, man. It really is not. But anyway, Vanilla WoW was greatly rewarded persistence and patience. Modern WoW rewards rushing. No, it rewards skillful play. So, I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. Soul Shards, class quests. Basically, the RPG part of MMORPG. Yep, totally agree. Modern WoW is nothing but a lobby game designed around being a vehicle for esports, having to use CC and not just race through an instance like it's a daily chore. I don't know, man. Anyway, forming a group manually and traveling to dungeons, that ties into the lobby game thing. Yeah, I do like that. It's one of the reasons I love Mythic Plus Dungeon, obviously. I understand why the Dungeon Finder was added, but ultimately it has not led to the lobby game design. not only led to the lobby game design of today, but exacerbates all the worst qualities of WoW player base, it should be removed. 100% agree. It has no value in the game anymore. But really, it doesn't matter because it's not being used for any serious content. Permanent progress. In Classic, my character's progress will never be reset. Yeah, that's a scary thing, isn't it? My gear will never get replaced by next expansion's quest screens. Is that a good thing? That means there's never going to be new content. That's the scary part, right? My class will never be arbitrarily changed because reasons. You mean improving the game? Yeah, you're right. It's never going to be changed. I know exactly what my class will be. It will never be gutted, nerfed, or pruned. Okay. The original world before the disgusting abomination that the Cataclysm changed it. Yeah, I'll miss the original world too, I'm sure. Choices have consequences. Each class cannot do everything, and my choices matter, like a real RPG. Probably more the case in Classic than BFA, but still definitely the case in BFA. No welfare epics. They're just called blues, right? It's like, what's the difference? Who cares what color the gear is? It's so weird that people focus on that. Server reputation matters a lot. I hope you will be right, because again, I really think this is like the most over-exaggerated thing about this topic, I feel like. I don't know. Two-handed enhanced, definitely unique. Same server battlegrounds. Is that a thing in Classic? Anyway, Shaman Paladin faction locked. Yeah, that's unique, but is that good? I don't think so. Unique class abilities. Everyone doesn't have a silence, interrupt, etc. It's true, but again, like, that just makes really, really, really big imbalances in some classes. I mean, it's kind of the same way in BFA, right? Like, not everybody has Shrouded Concealment, and you see where that goes. Anyway, getting epic gear felt like you accomplished something. Reduced mobility. Epic gear felt like you accomplished something. Okay. I definitely feel a lot more accomplished when I got that 420 Justice Holler, that's for sure. Reduced mobility. Melee is actually melee without a dozen gap closers. That's a good point. I don't know if that's a good thing, but that's a good point. Sentry Totem and several other small things, but I feel like I'm getting long-winded. Not compared to some of the people. I totally understand it. You know, like I said, the class fantasy stuff is a big deal for me too. I felt like I joined an exclusive club when I got my uppers key. Combined that with the fact that I was a holy priest and it was a hot item. Yeah, it's interesting, you know. The uppers key especially, it's probably the only good example. The rest are just, everybody had them, obviously. WoW has disappointed me for the third time in the same way with BFA. Wrath to Cata, Mr. Wad, and Legion to BFA. Each was a transition from a great expansion to a far lesser one. Legion had flaws, but overall was better than most. The Insurrection questline alone is almost worthy of being in a game itself. It's really good, I agree. The class quests were interesting enough to get me to level up almost every class for the first time. BFA is worse in almost every way. This guy's talking more about BFA and Legion, huh? That's pretty long too. Anyway, this is the third time I've actually actively looking for a new game. This time the game happens to be Classic. Things Classic has that retail lacks. Community. If you need some random person, you value them. Okay, this isn't just a product of removing LFD, LFR. The beginning of LFD was not cross-realm, right? Many times in Wrath, I zoned into dungeons with people I knew, sometimes even people in my guild. This was actually community building. I met people on my realm I didn't know. When it went cross-realm and people were anonymous, that eroded community. In Classic, you needed people. All right, sure. I see a lot of people say this, and I just don't understand why they're saying it. But anyway, Classic wasn't twitchy. Retail has gone down a rabbit hole in terms of twitchy encounters that don't challenge top raiders but pose a significant obstacle to many. What? Twitch or die really has no place in an MMO. What the hell does this even mean? He's talking about like fast-paced decision-making? Is that what he's mean by twitchy? Even the Lich King's Defiled didn't instantly kill you. That's a terrible example. If you stood in that for a second, you're pretty much wiped. And that remains one of the most challenging encounters. I guess. I would look at like Kill Jaden Heroic as one of the most challenging encounters ever. I guess there was a lot of twitchy stuff there though. Classic had subtlety instead. Yeah, Sub-Rogue was really fun in Classic. The difficulty lies in one or two mechanics. The overarching mechanic of threat DPS regen and the deceptive challenge of getting 40 people to coordinate. Glad we agree there. 40 people to coordinate was really the hardest part about Classic. Dungeons were a significant portion of Endgame. Oh, you're even going to say it. Even though my Mythic Plus standards in retail, Classic dungeons are unrewarding, but they're like mini raids. Okay, alright, so I guess we agree there. The lack of a race mentality is a major plus. True, but I think you're going to see it still happen in Classic for sure. People it's just different now, man. 2019. It's not the game. It's the people. A lot of the other points I made, I don't share at all. A lot of the other points made, I don't share at all. Chiefly talents. The illusion of choice is real. People have calculated every situational build like the optimal builds for pre and post shield slam threat. Even for fringe builds, one merely needs to look it up. The only real choice is to ignore Google and make a suboptimal choice. Ugh. Thank you for saying that. I'm really glad somebody here actually understands that. Class abilities are the only thing I don't see as an inherent benefit. Class homogeneity has no real weight as an argument when raid homogeneity is the alternative. Class abilities are the only thing I don't see as an inherent benefit. When it virtually doesn't matter who you bring to a dungeon and you're virtually assured of having everyone represented in a raid, class uniqueness becomes academic. He must be talking about Classic, right? Because surely Legion, 20 players in a raid, it's actually a lot harder to have one of everything. I'll be treating Classic as a side MMO based on how I feel about retail. They may get me labeled as a tourist, but I doubt it'll stop me from clearing knocks like everyone else. Okay, that's some good points there. Anyway, progression starting from level 1, meaning it gets more difficult and more in-depth. True. World is more dangerous compared to BFA, sure. Professions matter. They matter in both. One talent build at a time. What? World PvP at its highest. I definitely think World War Mode is much better. No item level scale or level scaling. It's true. It means a lot of zones are useless. Earn everything you receive, just like in Live WoW. Although, I guess it's stupid to even say that. But there's so many extra sources of gear now in Live WoW. Like, the Warfront, you get gear from the Warfront and then you get another piece. So that kind of stuff really has harmed the game. But, I don't know. It doesn't mean, I don't know. It's caused problems with gearing for sure. But doesn't mean that gearing is better in Classic. Earn levels. Okay. You earn levels in every video game you ever play. Strategy and elite world bosses / dungeons. Except Pokemon, because then you can get rare candies, right? Anyway, strategy and elite / world bosses and dungeons. Elite and world bosses, yeah, I don't know much about those, to be honest. World bosses, there's so few of them. People just zerg the fuck out of them. Really not challenging at all. Dungeons, definitely more strategy in BFA dungeons. One difficulty for set dungeons or raids. That's a fact, yep. All content is relevant. You might need level 45 to 50 dungeons still for pre-BIS. Is that a good thing, though? I don't know. Raids / dungeons don't overscale gear. What? Don't overscale gear. You mean once you're good, once you have good gear, the dungeons don't really get easier? Because that's definitely false. Anyway, world bosses cannot be soloed. Well, world bosses can be soloed. I don't know. Anyway, epics are epic. Not all of them. Fucking Christ, man. Do you guys not know what MC drops? Have you seriously never looked at some of the loot in Molten Core? It's so bizarre to keep saying this. Attunements. That's true there in the game. Elites are elites. That's true, I suppose. It's a lot harder to kill an elite than it is in Live WoW. Each talent, build, and class is unique. I wouldn't agree with that. More than one main bad guy, which makes the world seem bigger. That's actually a pretty good point, really. There was no cohesive storyline progressing through Classic, so that all the raids were kind of like their own story. It's kind of cool. Big raids and dungeons. Big raids. I don't know about that. But yeah, definitely dungeons have some very unique lists. He says let's go on, so I say the word list. Anyway, dungeons have very unique elements about size, but you're going to see they're not played that way anymore. Okay, consistent worlds, sharding, cross-realming, and phasing shatters the illusion that my character is an Azeroth. Okay, again, yeah, I don't know. I agree, but it's they need to get rid of 75% of realms otherwise, so. My actions matter. Nearly all world content and multiple instance difficulties and modern WoW are so trivial it doesn't matter what I do. While vanilla forced me to pay attention and make decisions, which made the game interesting. I just don't. I don't see that. I really don't see that. Anyway, a consistent community. Sharding, cross-roaming, and phasing making trouble here again, along with the dungeon finder and vanilla due to the player pool on a server being consistent and smaller. You were likely to meet the same player multiple times. Yeah, for me, I would much rather have an infinite pool of players to pull from, so I could find groups for things more quicker. Sprawling, challenging dungeons. Sprawling, totally understand. The dungeons are adventures in themselves rather than short linear stints. Oh, you're not gonna like how people do 5 events in private servers, man. I didn't have multiple face rolls difficulty. You had to grind in order to get the real version. You don't need to do that. You can go right to Mythic in BFA. Talent trees. Not only was getting a talent point a nice reward for reaching a new level, it was also simulating your character's skill growing as a result of his experience. That's true. An integral part of any RPG. Customizing your legendary weapon is customization, but it's but it is external and does not represent my character's internal growth. That's some like RP shit, I guess. Class quests. Learning to become a bear as a druid was not a chore in vanilla. It was an adventure. Whenever anybody says something like it was an adventure, that's just nostalgia, right? Like, we're moving on. More simulation features, like having to eat, drink, or buy ammo. Simulation features. This added value to the items required for those actions and gameplay surrounding those items. It's cool. It's pretty cool. I like the eating and drinking and buying ammo stuff in Classic, but I think, modern gaming just doesn't like want that, you know what I mean? So I think, again, that's like a 2019 thing, not a game thing. No dual specs or cheap respecs. Yeah, that's one of my biggest concerns with Classic as well. Your character was the accumulation of his experience, not an empty shell that could be changed at whim. Is that a good thing, though? Like, that you're stuck playing a build unless you have a bunch of gold? I don't like that, man. That's definitely my least favorite thing about Classic. It's like funny, right? Because everybody talks about how there's so many choices to make in Classic, yet you can't really make the choices because you're hindered by the amount of gold that it costs to respec over and over again. That's a big problem for me. Anyway, classes felt more unique as they were more specialized in what they can do. Warriors could not heal themselves, for example. They still can't. Anyway, threat dynamics, fucking warrior, man. Anyway, threat dynamics was a much stronger gameplay feature in vanilla, and I really liked it, and I found it more interesting to play around back then, whereas it's more automated now. Yeah, threat is very unique, and that's part of why I like Classic a lot, but again, if you played a bear druid or prop pally, you'd know that threat basically doesn't exist. You should go look at a bear druid rating. There's a guy out there who's doing bear druid and Nax, and he is absolutely showing that like threat is just not a fucking thing as a bear. It's unbelievable. There's an item. I'm gonna break this down for a bit. There's an item that you can get from Nomergon. I think it increases your attack speed or something. It's like a massive DPS increase. Okay, it's a two-handed weapon, so you could use it as a warrior, but I don't think anybody's ever gonna do that. You use it. It has 3 charges, so you have to farm it. Okay, you farm it and you use it. And you could use it like multiple times throughout combat. It's not like a potion or something. You use it, makes your DPS just skyrocket. Okay? Bear will be like the top threat by a mile doing this. Okay? So I think, again, a lot of the reasons people remember things fondly is just because the game was imbalanced. There's a lot of problems with game design that caused these imbalances. And these imbalances became part of the game to such a degree that people think this is what was actually intended. It really wasn't. I don't think Blizzard ever wanted people to be going and solo farming a Nomergon boss so their bear tank could literally just fucking, like, when you do that much threat, it means no matter what the damage dealers are doing, the boss is never going to fucking pull threat, right? So that really changes how Classic plays, man. You should look into it. Honestly, go look into it. If you guys haven't seen this, it's really crazy. Anyway, resource management was also a gameplay mechanic I liked in vanilla. Yeah, mana definitely is a big deal in Classic and definitely not in Live WoW. I totally agree. You didn't miss out on raid content because a new patch rendered it obsolete. Progression through MC and ZG was always relevant even though AQ was out and some guilds were tackling it. It's true, but there's definitely less of a reason to do MC when AQ and ZG were out, honestly. Like, that's just a fact, right? Like, ZG gear was better than MC gear in a lot of slots. So you would spend more time doing ZG than you would MC now. So I understand the point, but again, I don't think it's an intentional thing. What modern WoW does well is graphics and high-level rating. If you raid on a high level, there is plenty of challenge and entertainment, but I want entertainment from all other parts of the game as well, and vanilla provides that, along with other aspects such as an immersive world, which I look for in RPG. Cool. Well, you'll definitely get that. If you're looking for low-level stuff, Classic seems like it's going to be good. Can you link the post? Not looking to fan flames? No, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, old talent trees. Leveling is actually enjoyable and feels rewarding when you level up. Okay, so it's basically like the same thing over and over again, but I'm still going to try to read it all. This is going to be long, though. Getting excited when you get your first pair of shoulder pads. It was interesting, right? A world feels bigger even though I already know where everything is. Well, at least you admit it. Yeah, it definitely is bigger. I mean, it doesn't feel bigger. It is bigger. Epics actually feel rewarding when you obtain them. I guess some of them do. Some of them are really bad. Even blues feel rewarding when you obtain them. Again, some of them are really bad. Classic quests like the Whirlwind Weapon quest was really cool. No Titan Forging. Yeah, I know. I'm upset about that too. Raids only having 1 difficulty. Yeah, good and bad. All raids remain relevant throughout the entire game. Yeah, it's true. Especially if you're undergeared. I don't think anybody's doing MC when they're in Max 40 gear, though. Anyway, no level scaling. Yeah, I know. I'm upset about that too. Elites are actually a threat. That's true, but you just don't pull them, right? So you don't have to fight them. No LFR or LFG. No cross-realm zone stuff. Yeah, I mean, I wish these things were in the game, honestly. No level boost. That's, yeah, actually a really good point. Unless you're paying somebody else to level for you, you got to actually do it yourself. No bind-on accounts. I guess you're talking about heirlooms. Yeah, definitely don't like heirlooms either. I wish they weren't in the game. PvP is more fun, in my opinion. Okay, that's fine. That's your opinion. I loved old school twinking. Gotcha. I think you might like new school twinking too. It's actually really nice. Nax 40. That's a list. That's a point on this list. Yeah, it's a cool raid, I guess. Definitely not my favorite raid. List goes on, but this is good enough, I think. I agree. In retail, hoping for new and interesting allied races. In classic, talent trees, community, profession. The difference is mostly due to retail being too big now. I agree. They make a brand new MMORPG based on WoW, get a new engine so we can better design our characters. It's kind of true, man. The game's just gotten too many expansions, I think. It's never going to change. Anyway, a few mounts with some hard to get mounts not being seen used by Manny. Manny Ramirez? I haven't seen him in a long time. People representing their actual gear being worn. People representing their actual gear being worn. Yeah, I mean, I guess the no transmog thing is a point for some people. I never really care about it because you can just inspect them, right? You can tell by their health pool. That's for me, that's the thing. You look at their health pool, right? If you see somebody with sub 200k health on live as a damage dealer, you're like, all right, that guy's gear shit. Like, you just know that, you know what I mean? Anyway, a lack of toys. Okay. Starting out as an adventurer, right? Again, it's just, I wish it was different, but it just has to be that way. Manny Ramirez, what has been said by others in this thread? I mean, damn, that list would be long. Gotcha. Yeah, he was a great player. Anyway, that's somebody replying to me. I don't really know. Pretty much everything that's actually relevant to the actual gameplay and community. I hope it's right. I hope you're right, man. I really do. I hope that the community thing is as big of a deal in like official classic as people think it was. Talent, customization, being whatever you want. I really hate the way you're being forced into our rules since MOP. I want more freedom again. Yeah, but that's just so bad for balance. Like, it's like, do you want a competitive endgame? If not, then you could have this, but you basically just want a single-player game at that point then, because it's like, you can't have a Blood DK be a fucking range damage dealer. That's not possible. You know what I mean? That they're that for a reason. If you don't like playing Blood DK, then go play a range damage dealer instead. Anyway, two big things. Full disclosure, I am not an average player. Definitely part of the 1% as far as skill ceiling goes. Low-key brag. That's not low-key, buddy. A challenge I miss when the game was hard. What? It hasn't been hard to me in a long time. 2800 PvP or keys under a 13 aside. Above a 13? But that's where challenge is supposed to be, right? I don't know, man. I think people like really overvalue the challenge of leveling. I really do. I think people don't understand that's actually really easy to get through. I also miss having more than 10 to 15 buttons. At least he didn't say 3 to 4 buttons. I get a lot of heat for being a prop pally in PvP, and I mostly did it because I wanted some complexity. There's just no juice in the game anymore. Gotcha. Yeah, I don't PvP, so maybe you're right, but obviously, yeah, I think the game is just objectively harder in Legion and BFA than it is in Classic. Especially, again, the main reason I would say that is because you already know everything that's going to challenge you in Classic. You've already learned how to overcome it, you know? So, anyway. Threat, actual tanking. I definitely like Threat, but again, I'm telling you, go look into Bear, go look into Prop Pally. Threat's just not a thing for them. Not just playing a DPS with a shield, but occasionally using a defensive CD. Are you talking about tanking? Because that's definitely, like, there's no defensive CDs in Classic, right? Compared to Live WoW. Definitely more of a thing in BFA, especially Mythic Plus Dungeons. Ever since Wrathkata, they ruined tanking. The Threat Trifecta was a wonderful system, and it made good tanks revered instead of dumbing it down for everybody. It's true. It was very, like, playing a tank was a lot, like, you had to think ahead in Classic. It's still that way in BFA for different reasons, but it's a little different now. But I don't know. I think tanking in BFA is a lot more interesting than in Classic, especially because when you know that Paladins and Bear are just like infinite threat generators compared to Warriors, it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's really just, people just remember Warriors having threat problems, and especially in dungeons because they had no AoE. But it's just bad game design, really. Anyway, every expansion they kept simplifying to the point that you don't make choices as a tank, you follow rotation. That's just fucking false. I mean, you basically prove you never tanked a 5-man in Legion or higher. The one thing that made tanking fun, not using a simple rotation unless you're on a raid boss, but at least 5-man's made you think. Not using a simple rotation. So what's the difference in Classic? What are you talking about? There's still, you just sunder, heroic strike, sunder, heroic strike. Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, a pre-Cataclysm worlds. Yeah, that'll be a big one for a lot of people, I'm sure. The biggest difference for me is BFA and Legion demands your time. Like all mobile games now, there's a certain amount you have to play to get something, like completing 3 keys or 5 world quests to get cash. If you don't do enough, you don't get the reward. It forces you to play. Along with that, if you miss a week, you miss the cash and fall behind. It forces play. It's a job, right? Okay. That's funny to hear people say that about BFA and not Classic, but... Classic, do at your own pace. Collecting items or reputation to turn in for armors, weapons. It's a game. Both are games, and both have that same thing, really. I don't see how this is different in Classic. In fact, I would expect to hear the opposite in Classic, because Classic, you have to spend a lot more time doing the things that you need to do in order to get where you want to get. Like, for example, if you want to have consumables for every single raid, every single time you do a raid boss, you're going to have to spend a lot more fucking time doing that than you do in Legion and BFA. So it's like, I don't know, man. I think this is the opposite. I think you're backwards on this. Anyway, in Classic, there was more to do than press buttons at hyperspeed. Are you joking? I don't know, man. Anyway, when you were questing, you had to plan. Not really. When to visit the bank. Oh, okay. Like when to go back to cities. Okay, I can see that. Actually, because yeah, it is a big deal. You didn't have all these like mobile banks and all this stuff. When to visit the trainer. It's a good point. But, you know, questing took so long that you'd basically just, at the end of the day, you'd hearth back and see what's up, you know. When to restock on ammo, food, drink, bandages, etc. Yeah, I never played anything that needs those, so I don't know. Whether you had enough folks in zone to run the nearest dungeon. I wouldn't recommend running dungeons. Where the nearest flight path was and whether you need to get it, and hearth at inn. Where the nearest flight... Why would you... You just get it and then you have it for good. In retail, while you are hurried along to the meat of the game, which is apparently the key pressing and reacting, because it isn't an RPG anymore, it's an action game. Yeah, I could totally understand. It basically is an action game, and that's probably why I like it so much, honestly, because there's so much action to actually care about in the upper ends of content. You know, like you have to make decisions. And these decisions are so potentially fast-paced. I guess that's what the person was talking about Twitchy before. Like, it's so fast-paced that if you make the wrong decision at the wrong time, you might kill every single other person. I love that about Live WoW. And that's one thing that I know I won't like in Classic. It's like, raiding is fucking boring, man. It's so goddamn boring. I cannot even imagine playing a damage dealer in a raid. It must be so goddamn boring. Just press Frostball over and over and over and over again. How is that fun? I don't know, man. At least healing in raids and Classic is fun because there's so many different people to heal. Anyway, I'm playing BFA while I wait for Classic to release with a small group of friends. Like yourself, I enjoy Blood DK and the Mythic Plus experience. What's up, man? I'm going to hard switch to Classic, though, and not look back because I'll finally get to play my favorite class again, Warrior. I tried it up to level 40-ish on a private server, and it feels just amazing as I remember. The burstiness, the satisfaction of switching to battle stance to use overpower to finish a mob off and equipping a shield for an interrupt. I can't wait. Wait, oh, you could... They had pummel, didn't they? What are you talking about? Equipping a shield for an interrupt. Maybe they didn't have pummel in Classic. What I expect and hope will keep me playing Classic is server community and finding a guild with cool people. Hopefully you'll find that, man. I worry that you will, but hopefully you will. And yeah, I'm going to say this right now, guys. Warrior class design in Classic, even though I'm not the hugest fan of it, is probably the most unique class design ever. I always cite Paladin because I really like Paladin, but Warrior class design in Classic and even TBC a bit, unbelievably unique compared to anything else in the game. It's very, very, very unique, and it's actually pretty challenging. Like you have to play it well. It's not just like it is now where you just kind of rotate through buttons. But then, again, you compare that to Mage, and it's like, oh, right, yeah, I forgot. Or Warlock, even worse. Every piece of content in Vanilla felt a part of the game world. I miss when the areas outside of Alteric Valley Portal meant something. Yeah, it's cool. Like, having those things in the world is pretty cool. Today, I feel the game exists on 2 planes. There's this very superficial world zones and dungeons, raids, and battlegrounds. It just feels artificial. Nothing really matters. It's there, but not really there. I worry about these kind of things where people like say it feels a certain way without any real evidence. It's like, okay, maybe that's just a you problem, but in general, I can understand where it's coming from. I enjoy how raid had a progression path instead of having catch up every patch, making all raids useless. Also enjoyed faster paced PvP and bigger, more open dungeons. A lot of small stuff that made the game more immersive. And less log on and do my raids, Mythic Plus, and log off. Oh, and Twinks. So like the whole like log on and do stuff and then log off, that's a good thing for the game. Because otherwise you just wouldn't log on, right? But I definitely understand the point about not having like the catch up stuff, because it does expedite the way you play. Like maybe you would have logged on if the game took longer to progress through. But at the same time, I don't see how you can go back to that. Like it's 40 mans and having to go through MC and all this shit just to get geared up for Nax. It's like, it works, but what do you do when you're like, like 2 years into it and you got like 30 people who want to raid and you got to recruit 10 brand new players? It's like, oh, well, now we got to go back to MC. That fucking sucks, man. I don't want to go back to MC when I'm full Nax gear, but you're gonna have to, and that's not fun. I don't want to do that. That's one of the main reasons I'm not sure if I'll properly raid in Classic. Anyway, the professions, ever since they butchered them, I haven't touched them, beyond gathering to sell. Gotcha. I would not say they're butchered. Anyway, talent trees, class identity, no Azerite, actual community, no infinity modes in raid. Okay. Well, for someone that didn't play BFA long, 3 months maybe, and for someone that didn't experience WoW until Wrath, I am looking forward to Classic. I've watched many a video on gameplay and what to expect. I have friends that played from day one, and they told me to be prepared for a grind. I want to know what it's like for low-level 5-mans to be hard. I want to go in and not face roll the instance with no need for a healer. I want to go in and wipe and have to figure out what went wrong. I am a healer, and I love situational healing versus spamming 3 abilities. Is that a joke? Dude, you're not going to like classic healing then, I hate to tell you. Oh boy, I can't wait. Again, thanks for reading. No problem, man. My pleasure. I think you are misinformed on how classic healing works. I guess Priest kind of doesn't have that. Like, they have more than 1 or 2 spells used, but, like, don't play Paladin or Druid, man. I'm telling you. Anyway, a tougher game than BFA. 2 mobs can kill you instead of taking 5 mobs in BFA. Yeah, if you mean leveling, obviously leveling is harder in Classic, but that's kind of where it ends. Class design and gameplay, and not as RNG as BFA is. Class design is not. How is class design RNG? What the hell are you even talking about? Anyway, force you to group to do dungeons instead of queue for a random, just like Mythic Plus. A lot of things make Classic WoW better than BFA. Unfortunately, none of those really make any sense. Sounds like you played Classic or Vanilla, whatever they called it back then. Is this thing going to die after a few months? I hope it doesn't. Will the diehard WoW players from back in the day come back? If you're actually talking to me, I did play it back in the day. Is this thing going to die after a few months? Sadly, I don't see how it won't. I mean, just look at private servers for evidence. They have to constantly relaunch. They have to have this fresh realm concept over and over again. It's like, that's just scary, man. I'm not looking forward to that. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't even want to think about it, though, because I know it's going to kill my interest in Classic if it does happen. The big thing is that everything felt like an accomplishment. It felt good if I got to town after dinging 42 and had enough gold to purchase all of my new skills from the trainer, because that took sacrifice. Jesus Christ, man. And I'm planning after being mindful of my expenses to level my character. But the big thing was the MMO in this RPG. My original guild, which I raided with from Molten Core through Icecrown Heroic, started as a little 5-man group of strangers going in a sunken temple. That group became an instance-running powerhouse, and our friends list quickly became our everything group. Our everything groups. By the time we were 60, we had guild groups going every night to farm gear, items, quests, and we had so much fun. It's just like, you're remembering these things so fondly. It's just so much nostalgia, right? It's like, what were you even farming gear? Like, what are you talking about? You can only get so much gear in the game, right? Like, how are you playing every single night getting gear? There's no way to do that in Classic. I don't know, man. Probably one of the most rewarding things I've done as a tank is being able to take new members, someone's friend or whatever, from greens to fully geared and ready to rock. The older players like myself, missed that. We used to have to build our groups up from scratch and go get it done. You, Blizzard, started trying to do that for us, and we kind of resent you for it. I must be missing something here. Probably one of the most rewarding things I've done as a tank is being able to take new members, someone's friend or whatever, from greens to fully geared and ready to rock. Why would that not happen in the live game? You're worried too much about the color of gear, I guess? I don't know. The older players like myself missed that. We used to have to build our groups up from scratch and go get it done. You still have to do that, man. It's just you're talking about getting from like 380 to 410, instead of greens to whatever. Like, it's the exact same way. It really is. And I'm getting like really fatigued here. I'm having trouble focusing. So there's still a lot of comments. I did not expect to not get through this, but some of these took me a lot longer. So I'm going to skip to the very end, actually. I'm sure there's a lot of good comments here. I'm just going to skip to the very end and read the last few, just so, it's a bit fair. We'll read the last let's see. We'll read the last from here. I was going to play Classic, but this forum and people on it make me never want to play that game again. Oh, boy. Well, to be honest, this forum is really hard to post in. I find a lot of problems relating to some of these people. There are a lot of good people out there who play Classic and are passionate about it, though. I know some of them will come to this video. So, what's this person said? Oh, so this is actually one that I think I might want to read. Let's see. Instead, you had to carefully pull in CC mobs. This person says, no, you didn't. Most of the pulls, if you didn't have the right DPS class with you, you couldn't CC anyway. Thank God somebody's finally saying it. Yet, miraculously, these groups still succeeded. We were just collectively really, really bad back then. We used to have tanks die because the healer was casting rank 1 heals when every mob from the initial pull was still alive. We relied so heavily on CC because drinking water was apparently just too hard. I don't really agree with most of that, but the first part is like, goddamn, man, I'm so glad to see somebody in this forum actually say that. It's like, it's not, you couldn't even really CC most of the mobs. It's a really weird thing, and again, I think people just haven't played private servers if they think that that's how it's going to be. I should probably have said carefully pull or CC. The point being, you could not chain pull multiple groups and AoE them all down like you do today. Tanks couldn't hold threat on large groups. Again, that's a warrior. This is, again, people only know warrior. It's so weird. Why is this the case? Why do people only know warrior? I guess it was just not, like, you guys really need to look into tanking 5-mans as a prop paladin and a bear druid. You will have a completely different opinion on how dungeons go. It's a whole different game. Threat is literally just nothing to them. Anyway, especially in 5-mans. It's not about things that BFA doesn't have. It's about the things it does have. Things like LFR, Random Dungeon Finder, I guess. War mode, phasing, war mode. What the hell? What's wrong with war mode? Phasing, CRZ, sharding, arena, new talent systems. Each spec essentially being a separate class. BFA has many more things Jan Classic, and those things take away from the community aspect of the game. What is missing in Modern WoW is the soul of the game. Classic is basic, but the people I play with keep me coming back for more. The community is what BFA is missing. The soul of the game is gone. Again, I really just think, man, you guys really are not interested in making a community. I don't understand what's changed. I really don't. I'm sure people are going to tell me, but it's like, for me, like, especially streaming and, the work I've done on the forums, the Discords, it's like, community is fucking alive and well for me, man. I don't know what game you guys are playing. As the GM of a guild for 10 years, there's just so many different ways that I could interact with people. So, I don't know. It is actually rewarding to get stuff in Classic. Getting some items were extremely difficult. Yeah, especially when you reserve them and you don't invite anybody who can compete with you. That's definitely really difficult. But once you got them, you knew that you were finally done. Is that a good thing, though? I don't know, man. In BFA, you are a rat in a maze gearing up where items drop more, but there's always a chance of Titan forging where you could be better off. Yeah, that's my favorite part about the game. It's like, man, it's like, I don't want the game to end. I enjoy playing it. I don't want to not have a reason to play it anymore. So I like the fact that there's ways to improve my character outside of raid and stuff. Anyway, classes were also classes and not just a set of specs that act as a subclass that you can swap from out of combat. Yeah, I see that point. Shadow Priests can actually heal if they have healing gear on, not as well as a Holy Priest, but still decent. It's true. And DPS Warriors can tank with tank gear on, not as well as Tank Spec Warrior, but still decent. Actually, let's not even get into that. Actually, DPS Warriors are like meta now as well in private servers. You should check it out. Anyway, notice I said a Tank Spec Warrior and not a Prot Warrior. There's a spec that spends more points than Fury and grabs only some key talents and Prot that is used for gearing tanks to output the best threat. Okay, cool. So you seem to already know about that. In BFA, you can't heal other players more than a tiny amount as a Shadow, and there's no way to effectively tank as Fury. It's true. It's regrettable, but I don't know. I think the game's a lot more balanced and a lot more competitive because of it, so I don't mind that at all. Anyway, in Classic, locations on the map feel like a part of a living world, and in retail WoW, they are just cardboard cutouts. I've seen this guy's name a lot. He's got a lot to say. And finally, current organization or organized arenas, exotic pets, transmog is iffy. Classic, leveling will mean something. Dungeon loot will mean something. No, it really won't. I have a set list of BIS items to aim for. Yeah, I know that's I don't know. It's just my least favorite part about Classic, honestly, is how finite gearing is and how bad gearing is. Like, I have to run this dungeon. Now I get a piece that I won't replace pretty much forever unless I do like raids that I probably won't have time to do. So I don't know. Anyway, no Titan Forging, more RNG elements. So, we saw a lot of the same things here. The main reason I wanted to read this today and go through all of this especially was because I knew a lot of people were going to say the same things. I knew a lot of people were effectively going to say, I like being a noob again. And yeah, we saw that a lot. Not that that's a bad thing, okay? Like, hey, if that's what you want from a game, if you want a game that's, basically like pure casual, like all casual enjoyment, not much to be learned, not much to be challenged by, like the challenge is there. Like the challenge that is there everywhere, right? That's a casual game, you know what I mean? There's no real progression in the challenge. Frankly, a lot of dungeon bosses, a lot of raids are just obsessively easy, really ridiculously easy, especially, Molten Core. Even some bosses in the 20-mans like ZG, really very bizarre. Some of these fights, they just have nothing going on. So if that's what you want, that's fine, man. I'm happy that you're happy. But I very, very much worry about the game. Because I worry that this is going to be the majority of people. That these are going to be the people that are playing the game. And it's going to make it very hard for somebody like me to have a purpose in Classic. So this is more about me than anything, really. Like, I want to play Classic. I want to enjoy Classic. But I just worry that there's just nobody with the like-minded mentality that I have. And then this mentality in the live game, I'm like fucking mid-tier, not even. Like, I'm like low on the totem pole compared to some people. There's people who play and compete and succeed 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And they're still not the best. You know what I mean? I just don't think this is going to happen in Classic, and maybe it's better that it doesn't for a game like Classic, but that's kind of what I like. You know what I mean? It's kind of why I play games in general. I want to improve at them. I want them to be very replayable. I want there to be adequate challenge. This is why, like we talked about, like, I'm making the Pokemon game for this reason as well. Like, some games just don't have it. They just don't have it. And, Pokemon, the vanilla games, they don't have it. There's no interest in it. You got to make the challenge yourself if you want it. Classic, it's a little different, right? The challenge is kind of spread out everywhere. But at the end game, it's not really there. Nax is going to be very difficult for a lot of people. But really, the hardest part about raiding is learning the strategies and executing them. And when you already know all the strategies, it's just log on and do it. You know what I mean? And don't die, basically. Don't make a mistake. So I just worry. What the lifespan of Classic is. And the big reason I worry about it is because I know what's going to happen with servers. They're going to do something really stupid. Blizzard just doesn't seem to get it. They don't seem to understand why servers are problematic in 2019. And if people want Classic, they're not going to want cross-server stuff. They're not going to want all of this shit. But they're going to have it. There's only one option. It's either you have dead servers after a couple months, or you either merge servers or consider cross grouping. That's like, you have to choose one or the other. The only other option is make one server. That's one server for everybody on US realms. That's it. Maybe 2 servers because of PvP and a PvE or something like that. I don't know. But you make a very small amount of servers. So no matter what, there will never be mergers. And then you got to use sharding. That's all there is to it. So it's like one way or the other, we have a serious problem with Classic that nobody seems to be thinking about. Everybody's thinking about like leveling and grouping and all this stuff. And during leveling, it's like, I am way more concerned with the long-term health of the game, because the biggest, and this is my experience here, the biggest problem with playing Classic on private servers and everything like that, like I did, is that these servers just go away. That eventually that character is not fucking there anymore. And I will, look me in the eyes right now, I will not be playing a fucking version of Classic where I have to re-level paladins every 6 months. Fuck that. I'm not doing that, okay? That's not why I play WoW. I play WoW to establish a character, accomplish something on it, prove that my character is an accomplished element of the World of Warcraft, and demonstrate progression on it over a many month, if not many year term. That's what my Blood DK is. That's what my live paladin was before it. I am not going to remake a new Death Knight every season, okay? No, this is not fucking Diablo, where you have to make new characters every couple months, or whatever, Path of Exile, okay? If they do this, I have absolutely no interest in Classic anymore. but I can't see how they're not going to have to do this, because I don't see, especially reading this thread, I don't see anything to suggest that people are looking at this for the long term. They're all talking about early game content, leveling content, extremely casual things, features that I'm sure are great, but do not lend themselves to replayability over a multi-year span. So the answer to this is probably like, don't worry about it. Just worry about the first year for now, and we'll see what happens after that. But I am worried about it, because I want this project to succeed. I want to play Classic on, a repeatable and reliable server. And some of the comments about Classic from some of the people who are self-professed very excited about Classic, they just really worry me. So sorry, guys. 2-hour video. I never expected that. It's only 98 comments. I thought it would get through a lot quicker. But if you watch this whole thing, man, you're a fucking legend. For real. Let me know. Let me know you guys are a legend. But otherwise, that's it. It's a hell of a trip on this one here. So I'm sure there will be a lot of discussion continued in the comments. I'm not sure I'm going to reply to all of it, to be honest. I know a lot of you guys are emotionally charged about Classic, and I am too, to some degree. So, but we'll look forward to that discussion. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.